And we're live. It is time for the pre-show. Not quite getting started yet, but we have our March. It's March, everybody. 2022 A-plus study group. This is the 221001 Core 1 A-plus study group. So that is in great shape. Things look good on the camera. Things look good with the other cameras. I should probably raise that up a little bit, have a little bit higher. That would be in the way of the light. There's all these different things to get ready and get set up, and I think we're in pretty good shape. We've got audio ready. We've got recordings going down here. You can kind of see my Cylons going around there. We've got everyone online. Hello, Internet. Hello, chat room. Hello, everybody. We get started in about 10 minutes. This is the pre-show where we'll just figure it out. We'll make things happen. And then we go to live stream at the top of the hour. It's 11:51 my time. 12 noon is when we get started. This is really the time when I figure out, did I mess anything up since the last time I did this? We've changed a couple of things in the studio, not much, but whenever you make a change, you're always wondering, did you knock a cable somewhere? Did something not work the way you expected? I'm looking at all of the cameras. I'm looking at this set of screens that's right here to my left, and all four of those are the primary cameras we go with. Those all look great, so I'm happy with that. Down here in the bottom corner is an auxiliary display that's what really gets recorded as the main recording, what you see. And the right side is streaming device. It's actually the same thing as this screen up here, which is the actual streaming box. I have a box that all it does is stream. That's why I bought that box. Just a one thing that it does, but it does it really well. So everything seems to be working quite nicely. So I'm happy with our current status. This is live, so we never know how things are going to go. Hey, chat room. Hello, everyone who's checking in. Hello from St. Vincent again. Thank you for being here live. As I want to say, as usual, you're here so often live. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Disconfused in the chat room, Pastor 1002 with a 750, and then it looks like you're taking the 1001 next. That's something I tell people all the time. You don't have to take these in any particular order. You could take them in any order you'd like. So take the one that you feel strongly about and take that one first. Maybe get it out of the way, and then you can kind of focus on the next. Hello, South Africa. Thanks for being here. Couple South Africa, one in Johannesburg and Cape Town. Boom, boom. And Brazil and Maryland and Montreal. Thanks for being here. Hello, Houston. Downtown Houston. Houston's a big place. Hello, D.C., the District of Columbia checking in. Thanks for being here. Busy day in D.C. A lot going on today. Delaware, thanks for being here. There's North Houston. Thanks for being here. There's plenty to go through today. I've got all Q&A in this first hour for the 221001. And I've got questions I'll take in the second hour for anything. It doesn't have to be about the 1001. And an interesting announcement over the weekend regarding A+. We'll talk about that once we get started too. So there's news. There's interesting, I don't know if it changes anything, but it's interesting news. We'll talk about that. Hello, again, South Africa and Boston and Philly and West Virginia and San Antonio and Nigeria and Phoenix and Los Angeles. Rollywood. Is that what they're calling it now? Don't do that. Are there that many movies being produced in Raleigh? I think there's more being produced in Atlanta, aren't there? Is Atlanta Wood? That didn't even sound, that's not even a thing. That doesn't work. Hello, Clearwater. Good to have Florida checking in. Thanks for being here. More DC. Why is the A+ expensive? Well, I guess it's relative, isn't it? If you are a student, you get some pretty nice discounts. If you're a college student in the U.S., you get some pretty nice discounts. Otherwise, yeah, it can be a challenge financially. There's some options out there we can talk about in the second hour. 5 minutes to go. There's our 5-minute warning. 5 minutes. And we get started. Hello, Georgia and Atlanta and Fort Worth and Tampa, Florida. Are you in Tampa? Or are you not in Tampa? You're just generally in Tampa. Or are you in Clearwater? Or are you in any of those other places around? Mineral Wells, Texas, Ethiopia, Las Vegas. Lots going on. I'm in the freshman year of my computer science degree. I want to be a web developer. Do you think CompTIA Plus would be good for me to get a job early? Generally, on the computer science side, A Plus is more of an IT certification and not a computer science certification. It would probably be unusual for someone wanting a developer to look for an A plus. Stranger things have happened, so check the job postings in your area and you can find out. Hello, Virginia and Maryland and Wyoming and Tallahassee and Greece. Thanks for being here. So good. Taking the 1001 exam next week. Saw my playlist. Is the information outdated? No, the information in the videos is for the 220-1001. It is not only dated, perfectly dated, it's in-dated. It is exactly what you should be studying for that exam. To the letter. So no, you're in good shape. The exams are based on an exam number, a version. So the current exam version is 220-1001 and 220-1002. As long as your study materials say 220-1001 or 220-1002, then you have the latest videos. I read A Plus is retiring in May. It is not. Can you kindly confirm that is true? It is false. It is not retiring in May. I would say put on your calendar, although an official date has not been announced. I will talk in the first 5 minutes today, 10 minutes, about the status of retirement / new exam / what's going on. So we'll talk about it. Need to clear my throat. Not really able to talk. What's up with that? Hello, Baltimore and Chattanooga and Naples and Rhode Island and Provo. Thanks for being here. We got a lot working on here. I need to get a lot done. There's so much happening. My course notes say they do not cover the contents asked on the exam. Is so. No, that's not what my course notes say. My course notes cover exactly what's expected of you on the exam. They cover exactly the content from my videos. Why would I create course notes that weren't about notes for a course, that weren't any good for your exam? Of course they're going to be good for your exam. And they're constantly checked and updated. And I really do try to get the content to be exactly what you need for your exam, like to the letter. Flop-a-doodle in the chat. I don't know how you can say that any differently. Took the 1001 last Thursday, passed. Congratulations. Take the 1002 this Thursday. 1 week back to back. You're crazy. You're a crazy person. That is aggressive. That is an aggressive schedule. So don't rush into it. You know, you can always get the right things for your exam, but you don't have to do them back to back. I would say you probably have until August. Almost ready to get started. Less than a minute. I should probably prep things on this side. All right, that looks good. Let's get Keynote up and running. Looking for a green light. We got it. Very nice. I'm asking because I'm only using them to study, no other resources. So if you're only studying from my course notes, that's like buying a set of notes for a college course and then only reading the notes and hoping that you have everything you need to pass the exam. Probably not your highest percentage chance. Probably not the best use of your time. There are no shortcuts. So just reading the notes will give you knowledge for notes, but the notes are there to give you a foundation based on what you've already learned, based on watching the videos and reading books and do everything else. They're notes. So no, you wouldn't use them as your primary source. That's just not a great idea. So don't do that. Don't go like that. Top of the hour. Time for a live stream, everybody. Here we go. And let's see how we do this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2022 Professor Messer it's the 220-1001. That is our Core 1 A+ study group. I almost went into a range of talking about Network Plus and Security Plus, but those are next week and the week after next. Now we're going to focus on A+ today. It's all about the 220-1001 exam. It's about learning and getting Q&A on everything that's associated with those exams. We have plenty to do today. Thank you for joining us. If you're here live, thank you, chat room, for being here live. If you're watching on the replay, thanks for watching and following along with our Q&A. We do one of these study groups every month. And if you are here live, you can participate live. You can lock in your answers by opening up a new browser window and visiting professormesser.com/QA. That is your link to a question that's already there waiting for you. professormesser.com/QA. If you would like to have an app on your mobile device that you can use instead of going to that web page, you can load up the Socrative Student app from your favorite app store. There's probably a Socrative Teacher app in your app store. You don't want that one. You want the Student app. So you can find out there. And the room name, it will ask you for a room name if you use that app. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Now, if you do all of that right, there'll be a question waiting for you. That question is what we call our rewind question, because it's a question from last month, just to see if you can remember what we talked about and so that you can really see what you may have learned or perhaps not learned from last month. We're going to find out, aren't we, together? The question asks, a system administrator is configuring a mobile phone for sending email messages. Which of the following should be configured on this phone? Should it be SMB, AFP, SMTP, IMAP, or LDAP? A system administrator is configuring a mobile phone for sending email messages. Which of the following should be configured on this phone? Would it be SMB, AFP, SMTP, IMAP, or LDAP? Now, as always, we'd like to lock in our answers online by visiting professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. It's kind of our standing rules. But we will come back to this question in just a moment to see how well you answered this one. As we get into the rest of what we're talking about today, I'll remind you that all of my videos are available for you to watch online. But of course, we always have things going on when these live streams aren't happening. You can visit our YouTube channel at professormesser.com/YouTube. Our Twitter links will give you a daily A+ pop quiz question by visiting professormesser.com/Twitter. I also put those questions on Instagram with, of course, a pretty picture. You can visit professormesser.com/Instagram for those questions. As I mentioned, you are able to get a 1-hour webinar category CEU just for watching this. And you can accumulate a number of those to help with the process of renewing one of your CompTIA certifications. During this first hour, I will explain to you how you can receive an email from me that has everything you need to earn that CEU. Be listening in sometimes during the first hour. We'll absolutely talk more about that as we get to that point. Knowing how to submit the CEU is indeed part of the CEU. Now, as we've mentioned, really for the last 3 years or so, the current version of the A+ exam, there's two separate exams, the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. These exams were released on January the 15th of 2019, and we estimate that the retirement for these will be somewhere around August of 2022. We don't have anything official to tell you, but I'm kind of hearing the word on the street sort of thing. If you had to plan, I think that's how you should plan, is for an August 2022 retirement. So as we are here in March, we still have plenty of time to pass this exam before that is retired. We should get a better idea from CompTIA about an official retirement date, perhaps this month, maybe next. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Both of these exams are 90 minutes long. On the 220-1001, you need to earn a 675 score on a scale from 100 to 900. And on the 1002, you need a 700. So you have to do a little bit better on the second exam. Once you pass both of those exams, you are certified for 3 years. So it really doesn't matter what the exam retirement happens to be. Once you pass the exam, who cares what happens to the exam retirement? You already passed that. You're already certified. In the instance you're certified, you are certified for 3 years. So another one of those things to think about as you're getting into a retirement date. The retirement of August is a pretty good time frame to think about that. And that is once that date hits in August, or what we think will be August, or whatever the final announcement will be, that will be when these exams are no longer available. Now, this is a really big question, of course, because we have to worry about timing of things. We have to think about what that estimated retirement date of August might bring to us. And we have to think about which version of exams we would need to make. And up to this point, CompTIA has not given us any official public announcement of an exam until this past weekend. If you were looking at the CompTIA official Instagram page, then you know that there was some new information that they released. That information I'll share with you now. The new 220-1001 and 220-1002 exams will be out shortly. You can see that the release date on those, as announced by CompTIA on their Instagram page, is April the 20th of 2022. So next month on the 20th, really almost 2 months from now, we will see a new set of A+ exams. Now, keep in mind, of course, the current exams don't go away until what we think will probably be August. So the challenge you have when both of these are available, or at least when a new exam is first introduced, is there's not a lot of study materials available, certainly not compared to what you have today. So you're still much better planning to take the current set of exams and earning your A+ certification than waiting until April, where there will be limited study materials available. That's just usually how this works. Usually it takes 3 months or so after that date before you would ever see enough study materials that you would have a choice of what you would like to watch or read or use or have practice questions on. So if that releases, the release of April 20th means that an estimated exam retirement for that exam will probably be somewhere in the November timeframe of 2025. But of course, the retirement dates can change. You need to always be checking in with the official CompTIA website. Nothing changes with the grading on the new exam. So the new exam is the 220, well, it should be 1101 and 1102 on here. Same grade, same score, same everything. If I had to give you advice as to which one of these versions of the exams you should take, I would say take the current ones right now. Do not wait until April to start your exam studies. You're already 2 months behind where we are at this point. Never wait to get certified. Always get your certification, lock it in, and you're going to be in really good shape. So make sure you look at those. It's going to be pretty important to you. I don't believe the objectives have been released yet for the new exam. Although you can see here, this is the page of the objectives. I have them. I got them months ago so that I could work on creating new content for you. But you should have access. I think this month we'll probably see access to those exam objectives. So we'll talk more about that. CompTIA has not officially announced everything yet. So just keep an eye on the CompTIA website, on their Instagram, on their Facebook, those types of things. You'll start to see the things that are important with that newer exam. Right now, more of just, it's interesting that it's going to be released in April, but that doesn't really help us very much. The two exams that you need to concentrate on at the moment, the only two that are available, are the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. Today, we're going to talk about questions from the 220-1001 exam, including mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware and network troubleshooting. I'll also remind you, of course, that all of my videos are available for you to watch free online. There is no limited number of videos. There's no paywall. There's no registration process. You just go to YouTube and you watch them, or you go to my website and you watch them. You got plenty to go through there. Of course, if you would like an offline version of these videos, I do have those available with my course notes and my practice exams and my Exam Hacks ebook and a lot of other things too. You can find out more at ProfessorMesser.com/1001Success to look at my success bundle. We've also got on our website Q&A. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/take10. We can talk about all of those. There's plenty of questions there, and we try to put questions up that can help give you an archive of things we may have done on these study groups, and that's at ProfessorMesser.com/take10. We have, of course, have this available for you to watch on a replay on YouTube immediately after we complete this. And then I create a podcast audio only version of this that you can have available under ProfessorMesser.com/podcast. We also syndicate these to Spotify, to other podcast listening systems, and of course, like Google Podcasts, although right now Google Podcasts is having a bit of a problem getting their podcasts organized. You can only find one of these. Right now, it's the A+ that's available on Google Podcasts, so maybe it's not so big of a problem if you're listening to this particular set of live streams. I'll also let you know that we have timestamps available on YouTube. My marketing manager, Lori, mentions she has to listen to this whole thing. She has to watch the whole thing all over again. Hey, Lori. Everybody say hi to Lori. She's going through and trying to figure out where the timestamps are for everything. She puts them in the YouTube video description. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you look at the YouTube video description, you have to click the show more, and it shows all the video description that's there. It's all underneath that set. So plenty there to look at. Lots to go through. When we aren't doing these live streams, we are, of course, available on Discord, along with a lot of other folks. So a lot of chat that we can have there on Discord. Lots of channels to go through for A+, Network Plus, Security Plus. Visit us on Discord at ProfessorMesser.com/Discord. I'll also let you know that you should never pay full price for a voucher. Before purchasing your voucher, make sure you check the prices out on ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers so that you can get discounted vouchers if you're in the U.S. and Canada. If you purchase a voucher from my site, you also get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. So another great way to get your hands on that ebook that is not for sale. You can't buy that ebook by itself. You can only get it bundled with my Success Bundle or with these vouchers. So another way that not only are you purchasing vouchers from my site, but you're getting them at a discount. You don't need a discount code. You don't need to figure it out. You just have to go out to vouchers where ProfessorMesser.com/vouchers, and the vouchers are already discounted. That makes it very easy if you're trying to get a voucher for less than retail cost. Have a look at that. And of course, that does help keep things running here on the website. Let's talk about that question we went through earlier. And the question asked, a system administrator is configuring a mobile phone for sending email messages. Which of the following should be configured on this phone? Is it SMB, AFP, SMTP, IMAP, or LDAP? And you can see 73% of you say the answer is SMTP, which is a bit better than it was last month. So we must have remembered, or we know that SMTP, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, was indeed the correct answer because we are sending email messages, and that's the protocol you use when you're sending email. IMAP would be useful for a mail protocol, but it's used for receiving email messages. So IMAP, although 23% of you chose IMAP, not the right answer in this particular case. SMB and AFP are used for file transfers and moving information around for Windows and Mac OS systems, respectively. And then LDAP, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, is indeed a directory protocol, and only 2% of you chose that one. That obviously is not the right answer. SMTP is indeed the right answer. That's what you should be focusing on. Also want to thank Brian in the chat room for your $5 super chat. Brian writes, thanks for all your hard work. Brian, thank you for your $5 super chat. It works both ways, doesn't it? So we appreciate that. Thank you for the support. That's just something it helps keep the lights on. It helps keep this craziness going. And there's plenty of craziness to go around right now. It's a very busy time as we're building out more content and putting more videos out. You've got plenty to work through. So let's have a look at the ideas behind this particular question. We're dealing with mail, so make sure you're familiar with these mail questions as you go through your A+ studies. Make sure that's how that's going to work. Let's see how we're doing with our questions. Let's do another question that I have here. This is a question from last month, so you may have remembered it. Let's do some new questions. The latest question I have for you, or the first new question I have for you, is a performance-based question. Some of you who have not taken these exams before may not realize that the entire exam is not just multiple choice. This question we just did was multiple choice. There was a question, and then there were multiple choices that you could choose from. But the first handful of questions you get on your exam are not multiple choice questions. They are anything but. They could be a fill-in-the-blank question. They could put you at a command prompt and have you perform a function. They could put you at a Windows console and have you perform a function. It might be a drag-and-drop question. It might be one where you're sorting things or you're matching. Well, I have a question for you today that is indeed a matching question. Hopefully you're familiar with your printer technologies. This question asks, match the printer to the description. I have 4 printers listed here: thermal, inkjet, laser, and virtual. And I have 6 different descriptions. So obviously there's going to be 2 that are sort of left over afterwards that you're not going to be using. So this is a one-to-one match as we go through this. The different descriptions are: plastic filament is used in the output, paper reacts to a heating element, ink can fade over time, a ribbon is used to store ink, emailed output looks the same as the original, and image is fused to the page. So you've got a number of different descriptions. Let me run through these again for the people listening on the podcast. We have thermal, inkjet, laser, and virtual. And the 6 descriptions are: plastic filament is used in the output, paper reacts to a heating element, ink can fade over time, a ribbon is used to store ink, emailed output looks the same as the original, and image is fused to the page. If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, the link that's right there on the bottom of your screen. You can lock in your answer. While you're working through those, I want to thank Brandon in the chat room with a $5 super chat. Brandon says, just showing love for all the free content. We appreciate your love. We love you right back. Thank you so much for that $5 super chat. Isaac in the chat room with a $10 super chat. Isaac said, this is my last A+ study group before testing this month. Pressure's on, Isaac. We're all sending good vibes to you. Isaac also writes, thank you for all the work you and Lori do to keep the endless supply of helpful and enjoyable resources coming. Thank you so much for that. We love doing it. We're so glad you like watching it. It all works out, isn't it? That's a win-win in my book. We'll figure out the details as we go through this. But thank you also for that $10 super chat. We appreciate those. Of course, we have plenty of resources available on the website for your studies. Hopefully you've gone through your exam objectives. You use them as a checklist. If you're studying, if this is your last A+ study group before testing this month, then make sure you go through that list of exam objectives. That's going to be very, very important as you go through them. So I'm watching a lot of the answers come through as we're trying to figure out the details of this printer. I'm sort of reading them on my side. I see the messages come through as we break down what all of these things happen to be. So we'll have to see how well everyone does with these. And then as a bonus question, now that you've sort of locked in everything for these answers, there's 2 answers left over at the end. So there's 2 of the descriptions that aren't matched with a printer. For bonus points, there's no points, but for bonus points, if you know what printer type applies to the descriptions we did not use, I'll give you extra extra invisible bonus points that we don't count for anything, but are there for those pieces. We'll have to figure all of these out as we step through them. Let's see how you did with these. Let's step through these one at a time and see if we can match them to what they really are. We'll start with the very first one, which is thermal. A thermal printer, the name kind of gives it away. Thermal indicates some type of heating method, but I had a couple of different heating things down to kind of throw you perhaps, or try to. But in this case, the paper reacts to a heating element, and that is what you would choose for that one. We'd have a heating element. If you've ever gone and looked at a thermal printer, most common thermal printers I guess we run into are the kind we get on a receipt printer when we're at a store, although they have full-size thermal printers as well. We just don't see them very often. But that is probably the best description that we have for that particular printer type, which is paper reacting to a heating element. Second on the list is inkjet. Inkjet would be able to match with C. The ink can fade over time. The ink that's included on inkjet printers does indeed fade over time. And you also have a fading over time effect with thermal as well. But as you'll notice, I mentioned ink here, and thermal printers don't have any ink. So we can throw that one out. So the only thing, in fact, inkjet obviously has ink, but that might be a little bit easier for you as you step through this, knowing that that is exactly what's going on. Laser is number 3 on our list. Laser is that an image is fused to the page. As many of you know, when you put toner on the page, it sticks to the page, but it doesn't permanently stay on the page until you apply heat and pressure using a fuser. And having that fused to the page is important. That's why when you get the paper out of a laser printer, it's kind of warm. It went through a little heating process, and it heated so it will melt that toner directly onto the page and fuse it permanently to the page. And lastly on our list was a virtual printer, where the emailed output looks the same as the original. You can think of a PDF, for example, is a very good example of a virtual printer. We're printing it to a PDF printer, and it looks exactly the way it would look if we had put it on an actual printer. Fantastic technology, and virtual printers are used these days, maybe even more than regular printers. In many cases, that's certainly the case. Now we have 2 descriptions that were left over at the end. The first description was a plastic filament is used in the output, and a second is that a ribbon is used to store ink. So we've got these 2. Now, if you're familiar with printers at all, then you know that plastic filaments, one type of 3D printer, uses plastic filament, but that is a very common type of a 3D printer. There's a lot more about 3D printers coming on the newer exam, but certainly filament and 3D printing really do go together quite nicely. And lastly, a ribbon is used to store ink. If you have an impact printer, specifically dot matrix, but it could be any type of impact printer, we could use a ribbon. I used to work on an impact printer that was on a mainframe, and it had an enormous sized ink ribbon that you would have to replace. That is your answer. So thermal is a paper reacting to a heating element. Inkjet is ink that can fade over time. Laser is an image that is fused to the page. Virtual is emailed output that looks the same as the original. 3D uses a plastic filament for the output, and an impact printer uses commonly a ribbon to store the ink. So there you go. There's plenty to see with these descriptions. There's, of course, many other things you need to know about printers and configurations and troubleshooting. Make sure you look at the exam objectives. Incredibly important to know the printing side of this. Although it's just one single section of a much larger domain, you could still get quite a number of questions on the exam about printers, so make sure you are familiar with those. Now in the chat room, this comes up from time to time. A question came through that, let's say you got a few of these correct, but it got a few of them wrong. A matching question like this, you could have some right and some wrong. Does CompTIA give you partial credit for these? CompTIA said we might. We could, or we could not. They don't tell you that you will absolutely get partial credit, but at least they tell you that it's a possibility. So maybe. I guess the qualified answer is maybe, it depends. We just don't know. But don't count on it. Hope for it, but don't count on it. Do the best you can on your exam, and that way you don't have to worry about counting any numbers up as we go through this. Nice job on the performance-based question this month. Let's do another question. We're going to go back to the multiple choice-based questions. Next on our list is a multiple choice question that asks, an administrator is using a stylus to write directly on the screen of a laptop computer. Which of the following technologies is in use? A digitizer, an inverter, DDR, Wi-Fi, or SSD? And an administrator is using a stylus to write directly on the screen of a laptop computer. Which of the following technologies is in use? Is it a digitizer, inverter, DDR, Wi-Fi, or SSD? If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You want to instead go to the link that's on your page. Go to professormester.com/QA and lock in your answer right there. We'll have to figure out the details. We're going to be sitting here and no Googling. That's another standing rule. We have to figure out where it goes. Will there be another A+ study session this week? We have one on Thursday. So we have our 1001 study group today, which is a Tuesday. And then 2 days from now, we do our 1002 A+ study group. You can always check the calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar or simply click the calendar link at the top of my website. You'll find the calendar. If you're on my Discord, there's also an events calendar channel on my Discord. So you can find these in multiple places. Plenty to go to be able to find that. It's something useful that you can find because sometimes I change the dates of these things. For example, this date for this study group has changed. We were supposed to do this next week. So I always update the calendar. It's always updated. The instant I know something changes, it gets updated immediately. So I never have to worry that it's not up to date because that's where I schedule it. That's where I have everything. Let's see how you did with this question. This question asked, an administrator is using a stylus to write directly on the screen of a laptop computer. Which of the following technologies is in use? Is it a digitizer, an inverter, DDR, Wi-Fi, or SSD? 95% of you must have been using a stylus to be able to answer this question because you said digitizer is the right answer. Somehow taking something that's in the outside analog world and converting it to a digital representation on the screen with a finger, with a stylus, or just having some type of interface that will do that indicates that some type of digitizer is in use. And in fact, 95% of you said that's exactly the way that works. If you have a problem making all of these things work on a system that has a pen that you would use or a finger to be able to input on a tablet, for example, it's using some type of digitizing technology. So make sure you're familiar with digitizers, where they can be found, and perhaps even more important, knowing that if you run into a problem with a stylus or with a finger, it's probably something relating to the digitizer. Would not be an inverter. Inverter on a laptop, this would be for the older cathode ray tube backlit laptops, which you don't find a lot of anymore, but you may run into if you're doing some repair work. Would use an inverter to invert the power from the DC power inside the laptop into AC that is used by those backlights. These days, we tend to use LED backlights, and those will use the DC power. We don't need a separate inverter to be able to do that. We've got DDR. We've got plenty from a DDR perspective. If you're talking about memory, the dual data rate memory is where you would find. This was not a memory question, though. It was talking about a stylus writing on a screen. Your memory is not something that is primarily in use, certainly not the objective for this particular question. Wi-Fi, of course, is the wireless technology, one that you know is everywhere. And then SSD, the solid-state drive, is a storage device, doesn't have anything to do with a stylus on the screen. The best answer here, most everyone knew the right answer was indeed the digitizer. That's where you should go if you're trying to figure out how to get that stylus to work properly on the screen. Let's do another question. I've got another one for you. We're going to make these progressively harder, hopefully, as we go through this. This next question asks, a local store has a network connection to the warehouse across town. Which of the following would best describe this connection? Would it be WAN, LAN, MAN, PAN, or SAN? There's a lot of abbreviations here. A local store has a network connection to the warehouse across town. Which of the following would best describe this connection? Is it WAN, LAN, MAN, PAN, or SAN? If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You want to go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. This is not an uncommon question, I would think. Probably not an uncommon breakdown of where these particular technologies might fit. In fact, I've worked at a number of places that had a warehouse across town. So you have a practical use of these particular technologies. And in fact, we had to put in this particular connection, and we called up and said, hey, do you have a WAN, LAN, MAN, PAN, SAN connection? That's what I would like to be able to do, is work through that one. See if you know what this one is. Lock in your answer. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and let's see how you do with this one. I think if you're ever in the case of trying to figure these things out, knowing the abbreviations is useful, knowing what they spell, but it doesn't always help solve the problem. So don't spend your time only memorizing acronyms. You need to understand what that acronym does and how you would apply it. This is a really good example of knowing that piece of it. Let's see how you did with this one. All of these acronyms are real things, so we'll see how you did. And local store has a network connection to the warehouse across town. Which of the following would best describe this connection? Is it a WAN, a LAN, a MAN, a PAN, or a SAN? There's a lot of words you have to enunciate. 53% of you say a MAN is what you would use. 33% of you say a WAN is the right answer. 12% say LAN. So from a double digits perspective, there's some really good choices to choose from. Only 2% said a PAN, and only 1% said a SAN. So if you were someone who has a warehouse, it's across town, so it's not in another country at least. It's somewhere that's in the local area. We categorize that as being in the same metropolitan area. And if you were connecting those together, you would have a metropolitan area network, or a MAN. So this is not something that's in your building, and it's not something that's outside of your city or country or state. Indeed, it's something that's maybe in your, the tri-state area, they always seem to say, or the local geographic area tends to be categorized as a metropolitan area network. If you were connecting one of these today, your local network provider is probably just going to give you an Ethernet connection on both sides and say, okay, you're connected together with Ethernet. Usually you get very good performance, very, very good speeds from a metropolitan area network, whether you're using Metro Ethernet. And these days, some people are putting in simply cable modem type connections, which of course hand off an Ethernet connection as well, because there's plenty of bandwidth on those, especially in the same metropolitan area. If you're in a government setup, then you have what's called right-of-way here in the United States, where the government can easily put conduit in the ground and run their own fiber. Very inexpensive. So the government doesn't have to pay every month for a network connection from a third-party provider. They effectively are their own network connection. So that makes it easy to connect all of their remote sites together with this metropolitan area network. Indeed, answer C was the right answer. 53% of you chose a metropolitan area network. That is the correct answer. 32% of you, about a third of you, said a wide area network. In this particular case, the warehouse is across town. So the best choice in this list was probably not be a wide area network. That's where we tend to go further than our local city. We're going to the next city over. We're going to the next county over. We're going to the next state or next country over. That would really qualify as a wide area network. When we're so close that it's in the same city, a metropolitan area network is a much better choice. LAN, a local area network, tends to mean that we have it local in our building or on our campus is our local area network. 12% of you chose that one. A PAN is a personal area network. If you have Bluetooth earbuds, for example, or a Bluetooth speaker, then you are communicating to that device in a very short range, a very short area, a more of a personal area, and that's why we call it a personal area network. And then the SAN is a storage area network. Certainly is not a network connection to a warehouse across town. That's really for connecting storage devices, storage arrays, and storing information on very large arrays is a storage area network. That's also usually local. It's usually high speed, plenty there to work through. So if you answered MAN, answer C. You got that one exactly right. Well done. You can see there's a wide array of things you have to know for this exam. There is, in fact, if you look at all of my A+ videos, there are 137 A+ videos for the 220-1001 and 220-1002. So I think if you're someone who is working through all of these videos and you just don't have time to watch everything from every video, you may want to go through and have a look at my course notes. My course notes are a set of notes that come directly from the exam objectives. I have a set of course notes there. They are right here on the screen. So here's the PDF version of these course notes. Everything that's in my videos is in these sets of course notes. So if you're looking for port numbers, you're looking for charts and tables and graphs, or maybe you don't want a digital version, maybe you'd like the physical version, which is exactly the same thing. Let's see if I can find the same page that I'm on right here in my physical course notes. I'm just going to flip ahead. So there, for example, is the same information, still full color, nice, perfect bound set of course notes. And if you get the physical edition of the course notes, you get the digital version for free. But if you just want the digital version, that's what you can also work through, is having the digital version like I have here, the PDF version of those course notes. So plenty to work through on the course notes side. Lots that you could choose from, just something to help you after you've already gone through your book, you've already gone through all of these videos, and you need something to really sync together all of that information into one single consolidated form. It's my course notes. And it's another great way to help support the site. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/1001notes or use the link at the top of your screen. It's really appreciated. Thank you so much for having a look and considering that for the things that you are studying for. Let's do some more questions, because what's a study group without questions after all? Let's do this next question that asks, a network technician is installing a new DSL connection at a remote office. Which of the following connectors would be used for the DSL modem? Would it be F connector, USB-C, RS-232, SC, or RJ11? A network technician is installing a new DSL connection at a remote office. Which of the following connectors would be used for the DSL modem? Would it be an F connector, USB-C, RS-232, SC, or RJ11? See if you know the answer. If you do, there's your link, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll figure out the details for all of these. Lots to go through. If you're someone plugging in a DSL connection, you're probably familiar with this. Some of you have not plugged in DSL connections before. This is a question that came from someone who was sent me a note earlier in the week. And I thought, well, let's go through this one time, because if somebody's asking a question about it, maybe there's others that would like to ask a question as well. Lock in your answer, ProfessorMesser.com/QA. I think this question in general, all these answers, by the way, for these questions are all real things. So if you're looking at any of these answers and you're wondering, what would this be? What could you use? All of them are real things. So if you don't recognize F connector, USB-C, RS-232, SC, or RJ11, make sure you go look at it and understand what you would run into. In this particular case, there is one single answer for this. So let's see how you do with this. This is intentionally written a particular way to have you answer it in a particular way. There can really only be one answer for this one. So let's see how we do as we work through this one. A number of you have already locked in your answer, so let's see how you did with this one. A network technician is installing a new DSL connection at a remote office. Which of the following connectors would be used for the DSL modem? Would it be an F connector, USB-C, RS-232, SC, or RJ11? Only one of these would ever be used. Well, that's not true. There's probably two of these could possibly be used on a DSL modem, but really only one is the best right answer for a DSL modem. Let's see how you did with this. 77% of you say that you feel it's RJ11. 8% of you said RS-232. 12% said F connector, and then it all drops to 1% for USB-C and 1% for SC. So that's when you're ever in the case of trying to figure out connecting a DSL modem, then you're probably going to have an RJ11 cable, because DSL uses the same network as our traditional analog plain old telephone system or POTS lines. DSL modems are still an incredibly popular way to connect internet to different locations. In some places, it's your only option for connecting to the internet. I guess from a terrestrial link anyway. We're having more and more options for non-terrestrial internet connectivity, but DSL is still used extensively, certainly in the United States and other places around the world. Because we're using that POTS line, we're bringing in the signal very commonly over an RJ11 connection. RJ11 is very commonly referred to as that phone line connection. Technically, we refer to this as a 6P2C connector, a 6-position 2-conductor. You can kind of see the 2 conductors inside of that 6-position connector right there. So if you're plugging in a analog telephone, it's using an RJ11. If you're plugging in a DSL connection, it's plugging in an RJ11. So both of those are used identically for those. Plenty of those. And these days, you've got high-speed DSL where you've got hundreds of megabits of throughput, depending, of course, on how close you are to the final location, the point of presence for your local DSL provider. The farther away you get with DSL, the slower it goes. It's one of the disadvantages with DSL. What about these other connections, though? We've got, for example, 12% of you said F connector. F connectors are commonly used on the end of coax. They screw on to your system if you have a cable modem or you're plugging in a cable television connection. You may have seen these F connectors that screw in. You're sitting there screwing it in and making sure it doesn't come off because you're screwing in that connection. But that's commonly used for cable modem and coax and not DSL. This question was specifically about DSL type connectivity. And if you're running a digital subscriber line, then you will need an RJ11 cable to plug in from that modem to the DSL link in your home. Would not be an F connector. RS-232 is not really a connector type. We often refer to it as a connector type, sort of synonymous with a DB25 or DE9 type connection. RS-232, technically a signal that is sent over a link. We often see that referred to as a serial connection. So if you are configuring a switch, configuring a router, configuring a firewall, or some other type of infrastructure equipment, you're probably very familiar with serial connections, RS-232, these days more USB, but you'll still find some RS-232 9-pin and 25-pin connectors out there, but those aren't used for DSL. Those are used for low speed. Usually these days it's used for configuring systems. They used to be used for modems. You could use the serial connection for modems. And back in the day, we even used them to connect our mouse. The mouse was a serial device. These days it still is, but it connects via USB rather than a DB9 connection. 1% said USB-C. In fact, it's very difficult or unusual to find a DSL modem that would have a USB-C connection on it. Some of the early DSL modems had USB Type B connectors, the old USB 2.0 or 1.3 connector, but you don't tend to see that. Most people are connecting into their device with an Ethernet cable these days. And then lastly is SC, the standard connection or square connector, as some people will say. The SC connection is a fiber connection, definitely not used for DSL, and only 1% of you thought that was the right answer anyway. Indeed, 78% of you said RJ11. That is the right answer. That's the one you should have chosen, and that is where you would plug in, what you would plug in if you were using DSL on that remote site. Very useful. Let's do another one. Let's break this out with another question that we have. We're sort of shotgunning the questions. I think that's great. This next question says, which of the following would require the maximum amount of memory and storage space? You're going to have to think on this one. Would it be a virtualization workstation, a NAS, a thin client, an audio editing station, or a gaming PC? Which of the following would require the maximum amount of memory and storage space? Is it a virtualization workstation, a NAS, a thin client, an audio editing station, or a gaming PC? Have a look at those. See what you think that answer is, and we'll be able to break these down. As you know, there's these different types of workstations on the exam and more. So you really do have to know the differences between all of these and what resources are used by all of these. Lock in your answer. I didn't even put that on the page. There it is. Lock in your answer. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. I think this is a good one because we have all of these different workstations we have to know about. And there's some that aren't even on this list. CAD/CAM workstations. What else is in that list? Video editing is one of those we have to know. Thick clients is another one we have to know. You have to know what all these are and how you would design them, how you would create the resources or purchase the resources needed to build a system that would provide this functionality. Lock in your answer. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Lock it in right there. We're figuring out the details of this one. This should be good. Let's see where we go with this one. I don't look at the summary of the answers coming in. I just want to see how we do when working through these. Let's see, in fact, how we did. The question again asked, which of the following would require the maximum amount of memory and storage space? Would it be a virtualization workstation, a NAS, a thin client, an audio editing station, or a gaming PC? 51% say it is a virtualization workstation. 22% say that's a gaming PC. 13% said audio editing. 13% said NAS. And then 1% said thin client. So we effectively have 5 different systems here. And we're really asking a very specific question about what would use the maximum amount of memory and the maximum amount of storage space. And if we had to choose from any of these, I would say the one that uses the most amount of memory and the most amount of storage space of all of these different options is going to be a virtualization workstation, because we're building out all of these separate virtual systems. And so we're going to need lots of memory. You effectively, if you're starting up a new operating system, you have to allocate enough memory for that operating system to properly run. And then if we start another operating system at the same time, we'll need another block of memory for that system to optimally operate. So we are increasing our requirement of memory every time we start up one of these operating systems. So that's incredibly important. Now we also, if we're starting up all of these separate computers, imagine having multiple operating systems running simultaneously on a single system, then you're going to need lots of CPU to be able to manage this. The more CPU, especially if each one of those VMs is performing some type of function, it's going to be using CPU cycles. The more systems you start up, the more CPU you're going to need. This is also the case with storage, and I'll have it on the slide because it's on a different slide. But storage for virtualization, well beyond what you would need for any of those other options that were on the page. Virtualization needs to have every bit of that operating system stored. So we're talking about at least gigabytes, if not tens of gigabytes of storage for each operating system that you're putting onto this computer. So now we have an enormous number of resources needed for virtualization. And if we happen to look at our list, the one that is well beyond anything else is a virtualization workstation. Now, I know that 22% of you said, well, you're talking about gaming PCs. Those need a lot of storage space. They certainly do. Those need memory to be able to run. They certainly do. But nowhere close to the requirements that you have for something doing virtualization. Virtualization takes the idea of a gaming requirement and throws it right out the window. It just triples, quadruples, 10x the amount of resources you would need. It's well beyond what you would need on a gaming PC. Gaming PCs are really do not provide you what you would want for resources when you compare it to a workstation that's just doing virtualization. We're talking about a lot of storage and a lot of RAM. So virtualization is by far above this one, has the maximum amount of memory and storage space. Now, gaming PCs use a lot, but it just doesn't compare to virtualization. 13% of you said an audio editing workstation, and that's certainly useful from a storage space perspective. You probably don't need a lot of memory to edit audio. Certainly not relative to all of the other options that are on here. A NAS, kind of a similar scenario. You need a lot of storage space for a NAS, but you really don't need a lot of memory in a NAS. NAS is not doing any type of advanced functionality. It's storing and it's receiving files, it's sending files. Not very difficult. NAS doesn't require the same type of memory that you would need for gaming or for virtualization or even for audio editing for that matter. But it certainly has a lot of storage space. Probably more storage space than virtualization on a NAS, but we wanted both memory and storage space. So that's why NAS would not be the right fit. And thin client, nobody thought it was a thin client. Thin clients barely have enough memory and barely have enough storage to get things running. So in this case, the only option is going to be a virtualization workstation. Indeed, 52% of you thought that was indeed the right answer. Now, if you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, and you're watching this either live or on demand, either way, then you can receive an email from me by following these steps. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link at the top or the bottom of the site. It will bring up a contact form. Put in your name, your email address, put in your, on the title or the subject line of this form, put that this is the March 2022 Core 1 study group. That might be useful. You can also, in the body of the message, and this is probably another key piece, on a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month. And this month's super secret code word is gaming PC. Why not? Gaming PC is the super secret code word of the month. And if you'd like to put anything else into the body of that message and send it along, I do read through every single one of them. I'm not able to respond back to all of those, but I do read through every single one. And if you do that, sometime in the next week or so, you'll receive an email from me that says, here is your 1 hour of a webinar category CEU that you received by watching my March webinar. So that is how you can receive a continuing education unit credit. I realize many of you aren't doing continuing education unit gathering any longer. Most, I think, are probably using CertMaster CE to do their renewals, but some people still do, and I like to provide the option. And some people are collecting CEUs for other things outside the scope of CompTIA, and this might apply to the other things that you're collecting, so you're more than welcome to do that. And that process works whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching any of the replays. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but let's fit in another question while we're here. This is one. We're working through this. See how you do with this question that asks, a company is coding their own application and needs a cloud-based server for installing the operating system and the app. Which of the following would describe this model? Is it PaaS, IaaS, metered, SaaS, or rapid elasticity? A company is coding their own application and needs a cloud-based server for installing the operating system and the app. Which of the following would describe this model? Is it PaaS, IaaS, metered, SaaS, or rapid elasticity? See if you know the answer by locking it in at this link, professormaster.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Lock in your answer. See what you think the right answer is. This is kind of a game, I guess. We're not keeping score. Points don't matter, as they say. But it is something that we can step through to see how well you know some of these topics. See if you happen to know this one. The cloud-based section, it's a very small domain of the 221,001, but it is an important domain. You do get a number of questions on your exam about cloud-based technologies, so make sure you're familiar with that. PaaS, IaaS, metered, SaaS, or rapid elasticity. Lock it in. A number of you are locking them in pretty quick. Makes me think that we're going to do pretty well with the answers on this one. You really do have to parse the questions out and understand what someone is doing in this question, what is their objective, and then what would get them to that final objective that they're working on. This is, and as for cloud technologies, probably more than others, you would really have to think through what these objectives are. Let's see how we did with this one. A number of you have locked in your answers, so let's have a look. The question again asked, a company is coding their own application and needs a cloud-based server for installing the operating system and the app. Which of the following would describe this model? Would it be PaaS, IaaS, metered, SaaS, or rapid elasticity? We're a little torn. We're not quite sure. We have 40% that say platform as a service, or PaaS. 35% say infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. You have 24% that said software as a service, or SaaS. 1% said rapid elasticity, and 0% say metered. Well, if you are building out your own cloud-based system, but the only thing you're getting from the cloud provider is CPU, storage space, some memory, and a network connection, then you are looking at something called infrastructure as a service. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as hardware as a service, because all you need is just a box on the internet that you can build out, put the application on, put the operating system on, load all the software you need. You're managing the whole thing except for the hardware. And if you're managing everything, then the only thing you're getting on the cloud side is the infrastructure, is the box itself, or in this case, the virtual box itself, to be able to make this work. You're the one that has to load up the operating system. You have to manage patches on the operating system. You load up your own applications. You manage the patches for that application. You effectively, all the software is your responsibility. All you're really doing is using hardware that's readily available on the internet, something like a cloud provider that's giving you a web hosting service. That's a good example of infrastructure as a service. So in this case, of course, if you're somebody working through these particular challenges, infrastructure as a service is going to be, you're the one loading the operating system, you're the one creating your own application, you're the one installing your own application and managing your own application, then you're using infrastructure as a service. So only 35% of us got that infrastructure as a service option. 41% of us said platform as a service, which would certainly be the case if we were doing the development on the cloud-based system, that the cloud-based system provided all of the programming and application platform for us. But in this case, that wasn't the question. The question is that a company is coding their own application. They're doing everything themselves. They need a server to both install the OS and the app. Well, that's well beyond what you would get with Platform as a Service. With Platform as a Service, you're not installing the operating system, and you don't have to build the app from scratch. They're already giving you the building blocks for the app. So it would not be Platform as a Service, unfortunately. Software as a Service is when you really don't do anything. You don't load up an operating system. You don't create an application. You don't update the application. You don't manage the operating system. All you do is log in and use the system. So if you're using Google Mail, if you use Yahoo Mail, if you use Hotmail, if you use Outlook 365, those are good examples of email systems that are software as a service. You're not installing operating system to use Google Mail. You're not updating the software to fix patches if you're using Google Mail. You just log in and use Google Mail. Well, that's a perfect example of software as a service. A metered system is used primarily for cost and pricing and being able to measure how much someone is using of a system. 0% of you chose that one. Rapid elasticity is a cloud-based technology that allows us to build and tear down application instances as the need requires. Well, that's a great use of a cloud-based system, but has nothing to do with installing your own operating system and application. The one thing we were looking for, the one that would really best describe this particular model, is infrastructure as a service, IaaS, and 35% of you got that one right. I know we're at the top of the hour. Let's fit one more question in and see if we can turn this thing around. I have a troubleshooting question for you. See how well we do on this one. It asks, a user is trying to boot from a USB drive, but the computer continues to boot from the internal SSD. Which of the following should be the first troubleshooting step? Would you check for Windows updates, boot to safe mode, run startup repair, check the BIOS configuration, or upgrade the OS? A user is trying to boot from a USB drive, but the computer continues to boot from the internal SSD. Which of the following should be your first troubleshooting step? Would it be to check for Windows updates, boot to safe mode, run startup repair, check the BIOS configuration, or upgrade the OS? If you think you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You want to go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. I like troubleshooting questions. They make you think. So we'll see how you did with this one. Have to figure it out and break down all of these different parts of the question. What are they asking for? What is the objective? And then finally get to the answer for this one. Let's see how you do. Troubleshooting is an entire domain of the exam, and it's an important domain. A lot of the questions you get on your exam are these scenarios where they're really taking you through a problem and asking you how to solve the problem, which I think are great questions. They really make you think about some of the tasks and things that you've learned when working through these very challenging set of objectives. The CompTIA A+ objectives for both the 1001 and 1002, they're big, they're extensive, they're very broad. So it's important that you know what these things might be. Fortunately, they give you a nice breakdown in the exam objectives of problems you might run into so that you can then understand what you would do to resolve those types of problems. If you go through my videos, you know that I kind of break them out that way. Here's a problem. Well, here's the things you can do to fix that problem. We'll look at an example of that in just a moment. Let's go through this question and see how you did. A user is trying to boot from a USB drive, but the computer continues to boot from the internal SSD. Which of the following should be the first troubleshooting step? Should you check for Windows updates, boot to safe mode, run startup repair, check the BIOS configuration, or upgrade the OS? And 93% of you, I think we bounced back pretty well, said you would check the BIOS configuration to resolve this problem. This is effectively a boot failure. things aren't really going the way you would expect. It's not that we have a problem finding or working with the boot media. We're having a problem with the boot sequence, that some different platforms or some different storage systems are really working through the idea of what do we boot from first. And the place that determines what boots first, what boots second, what boots third is going to be your BIOS boot configuration. That's the option we want to run into. That's the one we want to use. Make sure you check nothing has been disabled. And if you're trying to boot from a USB, the USB needs to be put higher in the list than the SSD that's inside of your system. And that's why checking the BIOS configuration is the right answer here, the one you would want to use to be able to solve this particular problem. Booting to safe mode doesn't change what you're booting from. It only changes what you're able to see when the system finally boots into an operating system. We have 1% for all of the others. 1% said check for Windows updates, which is not going to help you at all for booting from a particular drive. 1% said to run startup repair. Well, we don't have a problem starting up. We have a problem of starting up from a particular drive. That's our issue. And then lastly, upgrading the operating system isn't going to do anything for where you boot the operating system from. It's too late at that point. The correct answer, the only answer in this particular case that 92% of you got absolutely right, is indeed talking about checking the BIOS configuration and looking at the BIOS startup as part of that configuration. That is exactly the correct answer. That's where you should be focusing on. Well, as you can see, we went through a number of different topics today, and the exam has some interesting layering to it. For example, asking you a question, having you solve that particular question are generally not trivial on the actual exam. But a lot of the questions I find online are either poorly written, they have bad answers, or they are asking a bunch of trivia questions, which I don't think properly prepare you for the actual exam. So I thought, if I don't like the questions that are out there now, let's make our own questions. So I did. I wrote my own book, contains 3 separate practice exams. It's 370 pages long with 3 individual practice exams in each one of those. So I've got the PDF right here. Let's do another question since we're here. Again, no answers in the chat room. We'll walk through it though. We'll take this A16 that says, when a user starts their computer, the screen remains blank and the computer beeps twice. Which of these would be the most likely cause of this issue? Is it that the boot device is not connected, the memory is faulty, the operating system has become corrupted, or the PC is infected with malware? Now, if we just want the answer and we think we know what it is, this is a PDF, so we could annotate on the screen. We can mark different things on the screen if our PDF reader allows us to do that. Or maybe we just choose one of these quick answers. If we go to page 31, we just get the answer. But if we go to page 49, we get the details. Well, if you got a physical book like this one, and there is a physical edition for this, you can flip over to page 49 to be able to see that. But since we're in the PDF, this is just a link. I'm going to click the details, and it takes me over to page 49. If you're interested, because this just came up in the chat room, if someone's interested in breaking through this and seeing what those differences are, you can find it right here on the view. I've got both multiple choice-based questions like this one and performance-based questions in this list as well. So you can really step through all of these if you're somebody who's trying to find exactly what you want for this particular exam problem. So whenever I start looking at these problems, the issue with the operating system and working through solving this particular problem, I really have problems whenever I'm working through computers in general during the boot up phase. So I want to be able to show you in these practice exams exactly where you would focus on solving these particular issues. Now on this one, I want to give the right answer. This was A16. We were stepping through this. So as we were going through this exam, there's both an A, a B, and a C set of exams. So you've got 3 separate practice exams to go through. What's nice about each one of the questions is I wrote them to try to emulate the same style of the exam. But also what's good is that the answers themselves are giving you both the answer for the question. For example, in this case, answer B, the memory is faulty. But I also want to give you some context around it. For example, I tell you why I think this particular answer is the right one. One of the things that bothers me on these exams, though, is I always get them wrong. I always answered something other than the right answer. So what I do in my book is I give you what all the incorrect answers are. The boot device is not connected. The operating system has become corrupted. The PC is infected with malware. Those are incorrect answers, but I explain to you why each one of those answers is incorrect. So not only are you learning why the answer is right, you're also learning why the wrong answers are wrong. I think even if you get them right, be sure to read through the wrong answers, because it could be on your actual exam. They may be asking a question about the operating system being corrupted, or the PC being infected with malware, or the boot device not being connected. And reading through the wrong answers can also teach you when that particular example may be the right answer to use on an exam. And if you really need a little bit more, I've got a QR code here and a link directly to the videos that specifically deal with this particular question. So if you're reading through the question, you just don't understand anything, you can click on that and watch the video associated with that particular question. And if I click the back button in my reader, it will go back to the answer set. I can always read through all of these. You got plenty of flexibility with the PDF. And because it's a PDF, you can read it on so many different devices. Those are my A+ practice exams. You can find out more about that at professormesser.com/core1PE. It's Core 1 Practice Exams. I want to give you a tip for your exams, especially if you are studying and getting ready to take your exams. Make sure you have the exam objectives. At professormesser.com/objectives, you'll find a link over to the CompTIA website, or just go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. We'll take you right to the page where you can download those. The exam objectives are free. They don't cost you anything. And they are an extensive list of everything you need to know for the exam. So make sure you get your hands on those. They should be the first thing you download on your studies. They should be the last thing you use as your checklist just before you're ready to take your exam. professormesser.com/objectives. Well, we do one of these A+ study groups every month for A+ Core 1, A+ Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus. We have our Core 1 A+ study group today. On March the 3rd, 2 days from now, we have our Core 2 study group. And then next month, our A+ study groups are on the 5th and the 7th of April. At least that's where I have them on the calendar right now. If my world tends to change, those dates tend to change. So make sure you're familiar with where that calendar is, because that's always up to date. Go to professormesser.com/calendar and you'll be able to follow along. Well, my part of the Q&A is over, but stick around for the after show. I'll take questions from the chat room. This is your chance to kind of turn things around and ask questions of me, and we'll see how well we can step through that. Don't forget about your discounted vouchers. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers. My practice exams, my course notes, my success bundle are all on my website. Go to professormesser.com/1001success. Don't forget about our Twitter and Instagram links, professormesser.com/Twitter and /Instagram. And if you did like the study group, I'd love it on this screen that you're on right now. Click that thumbs up button. Let the folks at YouTube know that this is content that really helped you. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, because there will probably be a large number of videos being created shortly at professormesser.com/YouTube. We'll break down all of that. Stick around for the after show. Thanks for being here on the first half of our study group. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the A+ study group. Now let's click a few things on this side. It's time for the after show, everybody. Let's pull in after show content. I'll change a few things on my side. I'll pull up the chat room. We'll talk about those as we step through this. There's your link. If you are watching on YouTube, that's the YouTube chat. It's the same one that you see right next to the YouTube video. That's the one that I am looking at as your questions come up. I've also got a chat embedded on my site. It's the same chat. Go to professormesser.com/live. It's the same chat on that page. I've just embedded the YouTube chat so that you can find it wherever you happen to be. For those of you working on port numbers, a question comes up from the chat room. Any tips for memorizing the various port numbers and wireless standards? Well, there certainly is. There's a number of things that you can do at professormesser.com/take10. These are the Take 10 questions that are on my site. Let's bring this up so you can see it. My Take 10 challenges, I have some for Core 1, Core 2, Network Plus, and Security Plus. I'm going to click the Core 1 question, and let's look at our options for Core 1. There are some multiple choice-based questions there, but at the bottom, there is performance-based questions. So if you click, for example, the Core 1 A+ performance-based question number 1 is all about port numbers. So let's make this full screen so you can really see it. Here are the port numbers that are there. Kind of get rid of this on our screen so we can actually see it. This is a drag and drop. I'm not going to pay any attention to what these are. I'm just going to kind of give you a feel for the way this works. You just drag. You think this is 110, we'll put it there. UDP 137 goes there. TCP 23, we'll put it there. So you can fill in all of the different ports, and when you're done, you can submit the answers, and it will tell you which ones you got right, and in my case, which ones I got wrong, because I just didn't pay any attention. But then you can reset it and do the whole thing all over again. So if you want to give it another try, you can reset the page and give it another shot. You can keep doing this over and over and over if you would like to. But remember that these types of trivia type questions of matching a port number and the protocol is only half of the story. We really want to be able to understand what that does. So, in fact, I'm going to start this again just to give you some context. For example, if you know that when you're working through this, that TCP 22 is SSH. All right, you're locked in. You've already memorized this. You know TCP 22 is SSH, and that's it. You know, you've already memorized that. But that doesn't help you unless you know what SSH is. What does it do? When would you use it? How would you see this on the network? What would you choose? Why would you choose SSH over something else? So it's important knowing how to match these, and I think that's the first step. But the real important step is knowing that TCP/22 is SSH, that stands for Secure Shell, and it is a encrypted terminal communication that you would use to communicate over the network and not have to worry about somebody being able to see the information that's being sent back and forth, because everything here is encrypted. That is the more important part of this. So don't think that once you match up ports and protocols, you're done. You're only halfway done. Go the next step with this, and being able to understand when you would use this particular technology, I think, is probably even more important. But that's in my Core 1 performance-based question number 1 under professormesser.com/take10. It might help you too, being able to understand what those happen to be. More questions from the chat room. Let's see what else is available. Do you recommend the following: taking apart and identifying/getting familiar with the components of an old printer and a 10-plus-year-old iMac? Well, the iMac's not really that important because that's not really specific to the exam. But certainly printers, knowing how the printer works is useful, and being able to see the inside of a printer, I think, gives you context. So when I talk about an inkjet print head being usually integrated with the ink cartridge, it's useful if you can pull out the ink cartridge and look at the print head that's on the end of it. If you have an impact printer, a dot matrix printer, it's useful if you can pull out the ribbon and say, oh, well, that's what the ribbon looks like, and that's what the print head looks like. Those are useful too. So there is value in getting your hands on the actual hardware, but it's not critical. A lot of the pictures and images you see online can give you a perspective of that. I have on my VM a game that allows you to put together a computer. I'll pull that up while we're talking about it. It's not particularly sponsorship or anything else we do. It's just kind of a fun game to play. I'll pull that up so you can can see that. So it's as if you are working in front of a computer, but it's all virtualized. It's all in a single system. I think it's on my boot camp system. So I'm going to boot up that VM while we're sitting here. And when that boots up, I'll shift back to having a look at that. We'll break through those. The graphics will be awful because I've turned everything down for the live stream, but we'll get an idea of the way that works and working through those. Another question in the chat room. I bought practice exams for the 1001 and 1002. They are great. Thank you so much for the purchase, and thanks for saying that they're great. I was hoping to get an idea of what I scored. I got 68 out of 90 correct. What would that correlate to with the 100 and 900 scoring method? It wouldn't. It wouldn't because each question on the A+ exam is worth a different number of points. And we don't know what those points are. CompTIA doesn't share that. The best thing that I gave in the book is kind of an overview. Maybe I can find it in the PDF so I can show everyone, is to give an overview in the introduction where I tried to break it down for you to give you a perspective of what's good, what's bad, how many is the right number, how do you know when you pass. So I gave a kind of a basic idea of a scoring chart and said if you get less than 63 questions correct, that's about a 70% or lower. So maybe we need more work. If you get 63 to 72, that's somewhere around 70 to 80%. And if you get 73 to 81 right, that's around 80 to 90%. So it gives you at least a barometer that you can compare against. But I don't have a way to compare to an actual exam because there's no way to compare anything to that. And I think that's by design. I think that's how CompTIA likes to do their exams. It's difficult for you to build your own exam that would match their scoring system, because if you could do that, you could effectively do what they do. So there might be a competitive part to that. I don't know. But it's not something you can easily emulate outside of the actual exam. So for those of you that are kind of working through the challenges of how do I get a perfect representation of an actual exam, well, I'll tell you, you won't. There's no way to do that. You're not going to make that happen. So I think if you're someone who is trying to get the exact representation of exam, you're really just not going to find that. It's not something that's available to you. So don't worry about it. I think that's the key here, is do not worry about if you got an exact number or trying to perfectly emulate what's on your system. That's not the worry. That's not your concern. So don't worry about that piece of it. It's not gonna be your issue. Where you need to instead focus is on understanding, did I get a question right? Did I get a question wrong? Why did I get the question wrong? And what could I do to avoid getting this question wrong or this topic wrong in the future? I think that would be a much better way to step through, or at least understand where the strong and weak parts are of what you're learning. And that's why I give you for each question which category this came from, which topic on the exam objectives is this from, so that if you get it wrong, you can go back and kind of do a little bit more study with it and understand, oh, okay, now I understand why I got it wrong. Now I understand the topic. This way, if it comes up on the actual exam, we're good. So I can't give you exact numbers because it's just impossible. It's a mathematical conundrum, and it just isn't going to be one I can easily copy what they're doing. But it's all relative, right? We want to work through these problems and learn by what we're reading, not learn, did I get a certain number of questions right or not? Now, ultimately, you could get every question wrong, get 0 questions correct, but you learned why you got the questions wrong. And on the actual exam, you would score 100. You would get all of those right. So getting them wrong on the practice exam, I think, is more valuable than getting them right, because you're actually learning something. So that's why I tell you, don't dwell on the number that you get right. Dwell on whether you really understand the details of every question and break them down that way. I think it's probably the better way to focus on that. Question from Ted in the chat room. I am a consumer electronics tech whiz. Me too. I love consumer electronics. Taking CompTIA A Plus the first week in May. I think I took too much time to prepare. Should I also buy and study for CompTIA Network Plus? No. If you're already studying for A Plus and you're already planning to take the exam in May, take the exam in May. You've still got, I don't expect these exams to go away until August. So as we sit here in March, the very first day of March, you have plenty of time to study for both exams and pass both of those exams. It's not a problem. So really focus on what you need to know to pass Core 1 and then what you need to know to pass Core 2. And what you've probably found already is that there's a little bit of consumer electronics in there, but not a lot. Most of what is on these exams is really about managing an IT system from the computer electronics, the networking, the security, and other pieces too. So I would recommend keep going with this. Don't shift gears for Network Plus. Network Plus will be around once you finish your A+. The N10 008 is the current version. It's the most recent version. It's going to be around for another 3 years. So you got plenty of time to circle back to the Network Plus pieces. Focus on A+ first. Not only will you get the foundational certification in your pocket, but you'll also learn a little bit about the networking side of things that you can then apply towards the Network Plus. So that's my recommendation, is keep going with what you're doing, and I think you'll be fine. In the chat room, Anthony with the $50 super chat. Anthony coming off the top rope. Thank you for that love, Anthony. Tekmate, Professor Messer. Anthony's been watching my videos. Tekmate, Anthony. Pass my A+ exams. Your practice exams and videos helped me so much. Thank you. You are absolutely welcome. Thank you for the $50 super chat as well. I really do appreciate that. Thanks so much. And everyone else is trying to figure out what language we're speaking. Well, it'll just be a mystery for everyone once we get to that point. I don't know what state Anthony's from, but it could be Anthony from Texas. Could be, maybe. I don't know. Or not. Maybe that's a hint as to what in the world we're talking about. I appreciate that super chat. Thank you. It's incredibly generous, and we really do appreciate it. Everyone here who's working on content, we're working on the newest A+. We would not be building a new A+ course without the support of everyone who is here watching this video. So thank you so much for that support, both for watching the videos, your encouragement, your support by purchasing our study materials. Hopefully you can see that we're creating what we feel are the highest quality A+ materials you can buy. And it's something that, in some cases, the highest quality materials that you get for free, that you can't even buy. That's the real key with the videos. I'm loving what I'm seeing on the new A+. So if you're someone who is working on the current A+, or you're thinking you'll be jumping into it in a few months, you're good either way. You've got good study materials to choose from. I think what you'll find, and I mentioned this, we talked about this earlier on in the study group, and I'm going to bring it up again because a lot of people saw it, and then after I talked about it, they realized, wait a second, he just said something important and I missed it. So let me very quickly step through what that thing was that we talked about. So this is a mention of this on the website and the study group. I'm able to mention this because this weekend CompTIA added a story to their Instagram feed that had a countdown clock of when the next A+ exam will be released. So they have officially now announced, I guess maybe they officially mentioned, I don't know if I would call it an announcement, but they officially mentioned when the next A+ exam series will be introduced. And that date will be April the 20th. So we have a month, almost a month and a half plus before any new exams come along. That month and a half of time puts us at April the 20th. That's when the 220.-1101 and 220-1102 will be introduced. And I got to fix that slide while I'm looking at it right now. Those are the newer A+ exams. So they're coming out in April. But the older, or what I would say the existing exams that we're using, are not going away, at least not yet. I expect that the current exams will still be around probably until August. August time frame, I would say. So even though this comes out in April with these two new exams, you're going to have an overlap period where both the existing versions of the exams will be available and the new versions of these exams will be available. And then you get to choose which one you want to take. These are not interchangeable. You can't take one exam from one series and one exam from the other series and be certified. Doesn't work that way. Both of the exams that you need to take have to come from the same series. That's extremely important. So if you take the 1001, you must take the 1002 to become A+ certified. If you take the 1101, you must take the 1102 to become A+ certified. You can't mix and match. So make sure that if you start with one series, that you stick with that series. Right now, I would highly recommend sticking with the current series, the 1001 and 1002. Because when this new version comes out in April, you will see limited study materials available. That's because it usually takes months and months and months to finally get all of these out on the street, out where people can get access to them. And you will find there will be limited books and limited study materials available on April the 20th. There will be many, many, many more study materials available on January the 15th. And in the chat room, don't wait. As you asked, the chat room just queued me up and said, so should I wait? Right here. Don't wait to get certified. Start studying right now on the current versions. Do not wait for new exams. I know they've announced April 20th, but you don't even know when the series of books will be out. And it will take a number of months after April. So probably May, June, July. I know that's cutting it tight, but probably the July timeframe is probably closer to when you would need to worry about that piece. You'll probably get at least some choices for books about that timeframe. There will be some books available when it initially comes out, but not a lot. Not like we have now. In the chat room, will my 1001, 1002 videos be available until that version retires? I never take down my videos. You technically can go onto my YouTube channel and watch videos from the 600 series of those. Let's pull one up, shall we? Let's embarrass all of us. I'm going to go to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to type in, let's just do a 220-901 video. Do I even have the 9? Yeah, there's some 901 videos here. I bet there's some those 601 videos. Let's do 601. So let's go way back, everybody, into the 601 videos with the beautiful blue background. Let's do this one on the 601 and 602. They weren't even numbered properly. System resources, IO, IRQ, and DMA. There's a little song at the beginning. I'm going to turn that down so we don't get taken down.
Certification training course. I'm James Messer, and in this module, we're going to look at system resources.
What a nice looking fellow that is.
Abbreviations.
He's so young. Look.
IRQ.
There's headsets.
And DMA.
It's a completely different studio. Same microphone. We missed. I should bring this up. Let me bring this up with. I don't want you to see it, but it's just exactly the same mic. Nothing changed there. Same hairstyle. Nothing changes there. Still sound pretty good. The comments, the content that's on the screen, kind of similar to what we have today, although it was recorded, I think, at 480p. Back in the day, that's what we ran. We had no HD back then. So yeah, if you wanted to go out and look at a video from 2010, published July 18th of 2010, you can do that. It's out there. So my videos will not be going away. You're fine there. You won't be missing a thing. I'm not sure what I felt watching that right now. But other than, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty happy with that. So that even held up. It sounded good. Didn't look great because it's 480p. But it sure sounded pretty good. It's that mic. It's exactly the same mic, which is my Heil PR40. Find out more about what I'm doing here in the studio by going to professormesser.com/studio. I've got the mic links. I've got the links to the audio systems for the mixer. You can learn about the video switcher I use. It's all there. And I don't know if many of you noticed, since we're talking sort of studio here real quick, there's a new monitor. It's a different monitor for the streaming system, which is kind of oversized. It's a little big. It's a little large, but I needed a 4K monitor. I don't know if you've priced out 4K monitors, but if you go lower than a 27-inch monitor, they get more expensive. I don't know why that is. The real thing, interesting part of it, is the 27-inch monitor, which is bigger than what I wanted, was actually hundreds of dollars less expensive. So in fact, the monitor you see sort of with the video switching and the monitor you see with the streaming to the left there, it actually is exactly the same model. I figure if I'm going to get one, we'll just get two of them. And that way I'm covered. If one breaks, I can always use it without having to worry about drivers or anything else. I know I'm comfortable with those particular models of monitors, so it worked out fine. Quite a bit. Yes, there's always something. There's always something going on here that's a little bit crazy. This is always the concern, though, that we've got this. I think that that YouTube video looked pretty good. Have we got the audio off of that? Let's see if we can see this. Let's turn off the audio for this. The camera angle's a little bit different. It's not quite. You can tell he's a little bit younger, kind of having to lean over into the mic a little bit. Not the optimal setup, but it worked pretty good. It got us going, got us learning what we need to do and what we need to not do with this training course. It seems like I'm leaning over. It's not. It's really the angle of the camera, just straight ahead for these. The newer exams are going to be interesting. We will talk more about what is different, what's better, what's worse. And then probably the next study group, I hope to have the announcement, the release of the exam objectives so that we can all look at it. And I want to talk to you about what has been changed on the exam objectives. I can't do that yet until CompTIA releases the objectives to the public. But what really is good and really what you need to plan for is effectively Windows 10 and Windows 11. I mean, those are the versions of Windows that are available right now. Those are the ones that will be on the new exam. So obviously the Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, those have been deprecated from the newer exam. So if I had to kind of give you a hint of some of the things that you would see changed on the exam, that is certainly one of those hints to do that. Is that a green screen behind me? It is not. It's an actual real room. For those of you that want to be able to see this a little bit better, I'll pull up we've done this before. I'm going to pull up the lighting system I have for control, which is a little bit convoluted currently, but we're getting to that. Let's say we want to turn the lights off in the back. We'll turn those off, and you can see, nope, it's a real room back there. We'll turn on one of those lights on the left side so you can kind of see what it looks like halfway lit. See, that's real. Nope, a real room. And let's turn on everything on both sides so it goes back to normal. There we go. Get all lit up there. There we go. That is the one, I think, there. So not a green screen. Common question, though, but not a green screen. It's an actual room. Probably going to change that out. So we got to do an update to the studio soon. We'll keep working on that. Windows 11 GUI looks like Chrome OS and Mac OS feel. I wouldn't say Mac OS, but it is a little bit better for this. It's a wee bit better than Windows 10, but I would not put it in the same category as Mac OS, certainly. Mac OS is just elegant. Mac OS it thinks ahead of what you are doing. Windows has just never been able to emulate that for some reason. That's the thing I think that really is the biggest difference between those operating systems, just is how you use them. Functionally, they work the same, right? It's the same applications in Mac OS as Windows these days. There's very little difference in apps. I mean, if anything, gaming probably better on the Windows side. But it's how you use them. It's the elegance of the operating system on the Mac OS side that I think makes all the difference. And the fact for me that it just doesn't reboot randomly to do an update, which I could just never get Windows not to do. I've tried everything in Windows 10 to make it not reboot, and it still reboots. I don't know why. I think I've almost got it figured out. It took a number of very esoteric registry hacks to get it to finally not reboot my system, but I think I finally got there. So that worked anyway to make that happen. Yeah, maybe that wasn't me turning the lights off. Maybe it was different scenes in OBS. However, probably wouldn't be OBS because as you see, there's a whole video switching system in front of me. So no OBS is required. It's all hardware based. And of course, the streaming part of it's not done through, I used to do streaming through OBS, and now the streaming's done on a separate unit from Blackmagic. So that's one of those. More questions in the chat room. Let's see. I have Windows 11 on a machine that isn't supported just to see if I could do it. I do too. Technically speaking, I have a Windows 10 machine that I was talking to you about earlier for the PC building simulator. We're going to bring that up in a moment. But I'm running Windows 11 in a VM on this system, and it runs great, even though it technically doesn't have a TPM at all. But it's a virtualized TPM, if you can believe that. Let's look at the PC building simulator, see if I can bring this whole VM over so you can see this. This is a fun little game. If I can get the screen up for you, I'm going to put me in the corner. Here it is. Free building, TC building simulator. I'm going to go with the free build. We're going to build it out. Although I have one already going, let's continue. The graphics on this are going to be so slow and draggy, but that's just because I'm sharing 3 screens and one of them is being sent out to you. So you can look around this. We're at like 10 frames a second, but you get the idea. We're looking through it, and then I can choose things in the room like this computer, and I can do things like take off the panel. I can remove the side panel. We can pull out all the screws that are in here. So there's the screws, and then I can take the screws out of the back panel. Take this screw out as if you were unscrewing it yourself with a screwdriver, and then you can remove things from the system or drill down into it and change things inside. Let's remove a drive bay. Here comes the screw. Let's put in a drive. We'll install a drive. We need a drive, right? Which drive did I put? Let's do one that is storage. We'll choose a 1 terabyte drive. We'll put it so you can put all these things in the drive and you're virtually installing them into your system as you go through this. And you can really drag this through and see it from different angles. Here are the different angles. Kind of see how it's set up, where you would plug things in. You can add memory. You can add a motherboard. You can put everything in here. It's really quite a system. And you can build it out with actual equipment. Kind of nice. There's different expansions you can get. This is called PC Building Simulator. And I just got it on Steam. I think there's a Steam update. I got it for a discounted price or free or whatever. But it's got, what I like is it's got real systems. It's got real motherboards, a real case. Yeah, for example, Paul in the chat room, I made a PC with that exact case in 2018, the NZXT S340 Elite. So it's kind of nice that you're going to do that. Now, they also have a game in here. So if you wanted to, you act as a technician, they present to you systems with problems, and then you have to resolve the problems. So it's a neat little game. It's kind of a good, fun way to work with computer hardware, even if you technically don't have the actual hardware or you don't want to change anything about your own system. So that's what I would recommend to you as well. If you're trying, it's very inexpensive to get the base system. I think it was like 10 or 15 bucks, full price, maybe a little more, but it's out on Steam. You can find it. A nice little game, kind of a fun thing. It works much better if you're not on this virtualized system with limited resources like we see with that you just saw on my computer. It works much better than what I showed you, but it's still a lot of fun. I'm playing around with that. And I found components that I built in other systems too, and I built those out. It was a lot of fun to do that. I'm going to start up my Windows 11 while we're sitting here talking about this. Do I have a Windows 11? Yeah, licensed version of 11 that I'll bring up. We can talk about this as well. Other questions that came in. Can I explain the difference between a static IP address and a dynamic IP address? I certainly can. Whenever we start talking about IP addresses and assigning IP addresses, we're kind of spoiled. You can take a laptop into a conference room, you plug it into an Ethernet connection, and it just gets an IP address dynamically. Automatically, it is assigned by a DHCP server that has a bunch of IP addresses in a pool. It grabs one out of the pool, sends it down to your computer, and says, there's your IP address for the day. And that's a dynamic address. That address could be anything. If I leave that day and I come back the next day, DHCP could give me a different address. It might change every day. It's dynamic. It's one that just can be anything that's assigned to me. And for the purposes of IP, especially if I'm an end user, I don't care what my IP address is. As long as I can access the internet, I can go to other resources on my network. Dynamic IP doesn't matter to me. But what if you're installing a firewall? What if you're installing a switch? What if you're installing a router? And you never want the IP address of that device to change because we may need to SSH into the switch and make a configuration change. We may need to bring up a browser page and connect to the firewall to make a change to the firewall rules. To be able to do that, I have to know what the IP address of that device is, or at a very bare minimum, not rely on DNS to be able to make that happen. So a static address never changes. It's static. It is non-changing. So if I set manually an IP address on that firewall, it will always be that IP address. Now, if you wanted to blend these together, there is a functionality within DHCP that will reserve an address. So you can tell your firewall to use DHCP to assign the IP address, but always get the same address assigned. So it's almost like having a static IP, but if you ever needed to change it, you can simply change it on the DHCP server. You don't have to worry about going to the firewall itself, manually configuring an IP address and doing that. You should not be doing that on machines these days. Maybe at home you can, but not even then would you bother with it. These days, you should not be going to a device and configuring IP addresses statically on that device. You should instead be managing it all from DHCP and doing some type of DHCP assignment, DHCP reservation. Different DHCP servers call it different things. But most of the time, people will call it a DHCP reservation because nobody else can get it. It's reserved. It's yours. Nobody else has access to that IP address. It's always going to be the same. Other questions in the chat. Let's keep going through this. Are there similar resources for learning how to configure RAID types virtually? No, I don't know of any offhand. Although if you're running a VM in Windows, you could bring up and run Disk Manager, build out your own virtual drives, and connect them together in RAID arrays if you would like to. I'm running Windows 11 on my system. The Windows 11 that's here, there it is. The Windows 11 that's here it's effectively Windows 10 with a little bit of fancy graphics on it. The Windows 11 setup, you could run the disk configuration, which is effectively the same drive configuration as the one you would get on Windows 10. Practically everything in Windows 11 is pretty much the same as what you would get in Windows 10. There's not much difference. So I think that's a good way to do it. If you wanted to try playing around with a RAID 1, a RAID 5, a RAID 10, you could load up the arrays there. I think that's probably more than you would need to do for the scope of the A+ exam, but it's a fun lab. And if what's better than messing around with technology and trying to make it do what you want it to do. So I think that's fun. Elliot in the chat room, FYI, CompTIA still says TBD for the retirement date. Yes, they do. They haven't announced anything. But I'm giving you, or hoping I'm giving you a little bit of insight into what's happening behind the scenes. I do get to sit in on the CompTIA meetings. I am a platinum partner of CompTIA, so I get access to course notes and planning meetings and other things that they make public to their partners. And although I'm not able to provide you with specifics, I'm trying to give you a little guidance prior to an official announcement. But obviously, we're all waiting for the official announcement. I am just as much as you are, so that we can openly talk about timing and retirement dates and release dates and et cetera, et cetera. So we will get to that point eventually, and they will update the website. I believe this month you will see, I hope that you will see a release of the exam objectives. So hopefully we will all get to talk about the objectives and what the differences are next month at this time. But right now, those objectives are not public. And then obviously April 20th, we know the new exams will be available if you wanted to take them. You probably don't on April the 20th, but you could, if you wanted to, you could. There will be a number of people who will want to. I would say the current exams will probably be retired. I would say plan for the August timeframe, but we have not seen anything official from CompTIA at this point. That's a best guess based on word on the street. Got my ear to the ground based on what I'm seeing, but it is in no way anything official. It is just my best guess to you. I think it will be around through at least August. I say August is a good one to go with, but they have not locked it down. And until they do, we just don't know. I'm just guessing. That's my estimate. That's why every time you see it, it will say estimated. Oh, I don't have to. Yeah, that's it. Estimated exam. That's not it. That's not it. This is it. Estimated exam retirement August of 2022. Estimate. I don't know if that will be or not. We'll have to see. We just don't know. It's a mystery. It's an exciting mystery, but it's a mystery nonetheless. That's the real key, is just keep your eye on the CompTIA website, and they will probably announce something. I was surprised to see an actual date, an actual countdown clock on their Instagram this weekend. So it was nice to see that so I could talk to you about it. But it will be a little bit different. There are some significant changes on the exam with the size of the exams. But effectively, I think it's really the same two exams with the same structure and the same type of content, but just updated for Windows 10 and Windows 11. That's really, and I think they got rid of a lot of older things that we didn't necessarily need to know. They took some feedback from what people were telling them, saying that I don't want to know about these things unless I'm actually using them in the industry. Obviously, people said I don't run into Windows 7 much anymore. Windows 8.1 in the enterprise, we're really focusing on 10 and 11. Okay, well, let's focus on 10 and 11. So some of those things are obvious. Yeah, of course, that's the way the certification exam is going to go. But I think they really tightened it up quite nicely. One of the challenges, though, is that there's a lot of content on both of these exams. That changes up a little bit, too. So I'll have some interesting stories about this as we go through the changes. There will, of course, be updated videos. There will be updated course notes. There will be updated practice exams. Everything will be updated. So we're in this process right now of just churning through new content and working through all of the new things that are on these exams. It's an exciting time. When we build out new content, it's always exciting. So that's what I'm focusing on too, is getting the right content to you. Every single one of my videos will be brand new. All of my content will be updated. Unfortunately, you don't see that with a lot of training providers. They will just take some of their old stuff and they'll blend it in with new stuff. And I don't think that's the best possible training materials to run into. I think starting from scratch gives you a much better focused perspective on what you need to know for the exam, because some of the old stuff disappeared. You don't need to know it anymore. And if it's still in the old videos, then you'd be learning the wrong thing. So I always make new videos for these courses every single time. Takes a little bit longer, but I think it's a higher quality. And that ultimately is the trade-off for me. The chat room, what about coding in Python? Do you need any certifications? Generally speaking, scripting languages, programming languages, anything where you're quote unquote coding. I don't know if I can really call Python coding. I guess technically it is. But it's not an app creation. It's not a development process. It's really for scripting. If you're automating and you're scripting, that's what you would use Python for. Do you need certifications? I don't know if there are any Python certifications. Generally speaking, when we talk about anything computer science related, like someone developing applications for Windows, for a browser, for a mobile device, there's not really certifications on that side. And indeed, for Python and the scripting side of things, there's some certifications that talk a little bit about those scripting languages. A+ is a good example. With A+, we talk about Python. It's part of the curriculum, but it's not a Python certification. And there's probably some, third-party, fourth-party certifications out there somewhere for Python, but I don't tend to see employers asking for those at this point. They're really wanting to know, do you have experience with Python? Do you have experience with PowerShell? And if so, what are those experiences? So I think that's the difference, is those types of questions on an interview. I think that's where you should focus in working through them. How would you describe the A+ certification on a resume in an interview for an entry-level / first-time job? You just put on your resume that you have the CompTIA A+ certification. That's it. That's pretty much how I would describe it. Most of the time, employers are already going to be looking for this. And if they aren't, then it doesn't really matter how you put it on your resume. Really, it's more about the exam or the job posting that's available and what exam certifications they would like to see. So on the posting, it probably says, it would be great if you had an A+, a CompTIA A+, or a CompTIA Network Plus, or a Microsoft whatever it is, or a Cisco whatever it is. They'll tell you in the job posting what they would like to see. And if they say CompTIA A+, make sure it's on your exam. Make sure it's on your resume. The one thing I always mention, and I go through this in detail, if you look at the video description on YouTube, I have links to my videos on why your resume 5 reasons why your resume keeps getting rejected. And I have a follow-up video of 5 more reasons why your resume keeps getting rejected. And I talk about, what do you put on the resume and why are you putting it on the resume? How does what you put on your resume translate into what the employer is seeing on their side? And I talk about their automated systems. I talk about structure of the resume so that it's easily interpreted by the automated systems. And I talk about matching a resume to a job posting. You should, for example, and this is something I brought up before, if you are submitting a resume for a job posting, it should be a custom resume. It should be a resume that you write specifically to that job posting. So every time you post your resume, you should be updating it for that job. And I explain why in my video, and I explain how you can do it effectively in less than 5 minutes. So you should have a custom resume sent every time you're applying for a job. It should be one you are specifically building out just for that position. And I explain in the video why. Why would you go through the process of doing that, of creating a custom CV every single time? Absolutely. Create a custom CV every single time, because it matters to the automated system. And ultimately, that's your first hurdle. You have to get over the automated system so that a human being can look at your resume, know what it was already scored as automatically, look through it and see if it's something that fits right, and finally get you into the interviewing process. If you can't get over the first automated hurdle, you'll never get to the next people hurdle. So it's all about getting through all the hurdles when you finally get there. That's the real key. Make sure you work through that. Question in the chat room, would the ITF cert be worth it on top of the A+? ITF is the IT Fundamentals Plus certification from CompTIA. Generally, the A+ certification is a higher level cert than ITF Plus, but ultimately, you should absolutely get certifications that are being asked by the employer. If the employer says, we would like you to have ITF Plus, you should have ITF Plus. If the employer says, we would like you to have A+, then you can just have A+. So that's the real key. Usually an employer, it's kind of hard to find ITF Plus being asked for on a job posting, quite honestly. It does not seem to be the one that employers are leading with. Generally, employers will lead with the A+. And so I don't know if you're going to find ITF Plus on a lot of job postings. But if you do, that's the one you should have. Your submission to the job posting should match their requirements. If they're asking for ITF Plus or they're asking for A+, don't give them a Cisco CCNA. They don't want that. In fact, they'll probably dismiss you out of hand because you have a higher level certification than what the job entails. You're overqualified. That's a good example of where that fits. So this kind of applies to any question that you can come up with. Should I get the X certification? Should I go get the Y certification? Is this certification one I should get? I don't know. Is someone asking you to have it? That's really the key. The whole point of having a certification, for the most part, is to work towards getting a job or getting a better job. Now, of course, I imagine there's people that take certification exams just so they can learn something new. That's absolutely reasonable and fine to do. But for most people that are coming to these live streams, you're coming to my website, you're watching the videos, you're earning this certification for a reason. There's something behind that, and usually it's getting a job or getting a better job. So anytime you're in a case where you're wondering, should I get the Microsoft Cloud, Azure Cloud introductory cert? I don't know. Is anyone asking you to have that certification? Is there something about a job posting that you're looking at that would lead you to believe this could be an advantage for you? Ultimately, that's the answer, because it changes depending on where you are. If you're somebody in the pre-show, there were a number of people here from D.C., Washington, D.C. in the United States, where it is the capital of the country. It's our federal seat. So a lot of the jobs in that area in IT want you to have Security Plus. That is the lead. That's the one they want you to have. A+, not important. Network Plus, not important. Security Plus, very important. So entry-level jobs in the DC area have a very different job posting and set of requirements than jobs you might find in Texas or California or Seattle. It's a different world completely. Everybody is going to find differences in geography. So you'll find that Denver has a different average set of requirements than Washington, D.C. might, than Virginia or Maryland. So make sure that you have a look at the job postings in your geography and you work towards those, because it's going to be very different if you are in Northern Virginia than if you are in Denver. So that's the balancing act. In the chat room, the questions: how far does a IT associate degree go? And it's a balance of these different things. If there's a video that's in the YouTube video description, how to get a job in IT with no experience. It's a 30-minute video I did on how to do this, and it's chock full of content for the entire 30 minutes. It's not something I can tell you in an after show. But I talk about 4 different elements in that video. One is a formal education. Employers like it when you have a formal education. That would be a 2 or 4 year degree. Employers like it when you have industry certifications. That's another element. A third element might be some practical experience, whether it's something that's paid, a professional experience, or maybe volunteer. And the fourth element in getting your first job in IT with no experience is knowing someone who works there. It's one of these most important things in your career. Throughout your career, knowing someone who works at that company gives you an enormous advantage over other people who don't know somebody who works in that company. And I don't mean necessarily someone in IT, although that's useful, but even someone who's in the accounting department. You just know someone who works there. There's a connection. That's a valuable thing. And if you have a particular company or a particular organization where you know someone there, then you have a much larger advantage in getting a job with that company than going somewhere else. It's just sort of the way it works. We trust the people who work here, and the fact that you know someone who works here, it extends that trust, and it makes a difference during the hiring process. It's not a guarantee, but it absolutely helps you during the hiring process. So I would absolutely say that's an important thing. When I say CompTIA is a U.S. thing, it is not. It's an international certification. It is asked for in different parts of the world. Obviously, different countries have a different priority on whether these certifications are valid or not. But that's not a CompTIA issue. That's more of a certification issue in IT. There's certain countries where certifications are not as important. Other countries where certifications are very important. And it is certainly certifications in the U.S. Are very important. So CompTIA, Microsoft, VMware, Cisco, the big companies. Those are the things people are looking for. They want certifications. And it just is going to depend on your geography as to the value of those certifications. This is the real key, of course. If you're getting a cert, what value is it giving you? And that is a balancing act between what an employer would like to see and the skills that you bring to the table. Ultimately, certifications teach you something. They teach you how to resolve or know what these technologies are and how they work. So you're still going to use the skills you learn with A+. You will continue to use those skills the rest of your career. Will the jobs the rest of your career continue to ask you for the A+ certification? Probably not. When you get into the level where you're a network administrator, you're IT security professional, the job postings probably won't say A+, because at that point, we're just assuming you know how to use Windows. We're assuming you know how to troubleshoot Windows, how to make sure that you are able to build a system properly and spec it out with all of the things you need to make that system work. That's just sort of a given. But you will still use those skills the rest of your career. It's not like you get off the help desk, you never have to know anything in A+ again. Nope, doesn't work like that. It's a tiered process. You will continue to learn throughout your career. There will never be a point in your IT career where you're not learning something. That's not the way IT works. You're not working on an assembly line, whereas as soon as you figure out how to build the widget, you're done. You don't have to know how to do anything else. It doesn't work that way with IT. It moves way too fast. You not only have to know all of these different things and technologies that we go through, those technologies are constantly changing. So you're always listening to podcasts. You're always trying to get the next certification. You're always learning about the new technologies you're installing. It never ends. Now, for some people, that's sort of daunting. They think, wow, it never ends. I got to study all the time. I thought when I got out of school, I didn't have to study anymore. I thought that was the point. Nope, doesn't work that way. You will continue to study for the rest of your career, but it's fun. It's fun study. You're learning technology. If it's not something that's fun to you, it's not something you enjoy, the learning process is not one that you're good with, maybe this isn't quite the perfect job for you then. But it's a great job. I mean, it's one of the reasons I think that we have such advantage with how we get paid in IT. The entry-level IT is entry-level pay. But as you learn these skills and you move into networking or databases or servers or Linux or networking or security, those are skills where there's a larger price tag associated with them. You are worth more money. You will make more money as you move into those different areas of IT. And that's one of the great things I love about IT is that there's no ceiling there. If you want to make some more money, you can find a job where you make more money. If you want a job that has more flexibility, you can find a job that has more flexibility. And you can balance out the pay versus the flexibility versus the benefits versus whatever it happens to be. It's a very competitive market right now. People need technicians. They need security professionals. People are building out these technologies. So it's always good. Always good to keep your eye on what's important and always keep learning and always keep moving up. You should always be leveling up in IT because when you level up, you get more cash. I mean, I'm coin operated. I'm not embarrassed by that. In my career, I was very much coin operated. If I wanted more coin, I needed to find a way to get that better job to make more coin. So that's what I did my entire career. I guess when I finally got out of that side, when I was a systems engineer, I was a senior systems engineer for a next-gen firewall company, that was probably the pinnacle of a technical systems engineering job. It would be very difficult for me to find another job with the same pay and benefits because I had sort of worked up to a high level within systems engineering. But even then, we were still learning and we're still trying to find new ways to use these technologies and how they work together. And of course, there were tons of technologies these used that I didn't know that I needed to catch up on because you can only know so much. You'll never know everything in IT. If you are in a job where you know everything, you're in the wrong job if this is IT. You should never be the smartest one in the room. And if you find yourself that you're the smartest one in the room, then you should have another job at this point. You should have already leveled up. It's time to hit the level up button, find the next job, level it up, make more money, but now start at the bottom again, start in the learning process. Maybe not the bottom, but you're now learning again. You're not the smartest one in the room. You can talk to the smartest one in the room so that you are able to get to that point, and then you level up again. And the cycle continues. It's the circle of life. That is the standard operating process in most aspects of information technology. Now, if you like a particular position and you don't want to level up, you don't want to move up, that's perfectly fine too. When I was in IT and working as an SE, there was a point of time where they said, well, maybe you'd like to try being an SE manager. Like, let's give it a shot. I'll move into management. And I became an SE manager for all of my systems engineers. And I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't my thing. I think I did okay. Did an okay job. And nobody died. That's my barometer. Nobody died in IT. Hopefully in your jobs with IT, nobody dies. But that was, maybe I didn't hold myself to a very high standard. No one died. But I can't say that I was the best SE manager that I've ever had. And I was the manager. So I realized pretty early on, we should probably find somebody who likes doing this. I would rather be with the technology, and I moved back to being a systems engineer. Now, interestingly enough, I think I probably made more money being an SE than an SE manager, just because systems engineering has when you sell more, you get more money. So if you're good at being a systems engineer, your potential earnings goes up. It's real benefit to have that. Yes. Now, if I was in an IT department in a hospital, I get it. If I was an IT department on a plane, it's different. That's the key. Then you are worried about people dying. That's what I want to worry about. Am I going to drop a mixtape? I am not going to drop a mixtape. No, I have no plans to drop. If I'm dropping something, it's probably bad. That's not what I do. No mixtapes. None of that. No hot bars. You will not have any hot bars from me. No, thank you. I'm doing good. I don't have much time for mixtapes these days. We are all about creating A+ content right now. I'm in the middle. I'm up here. We are technically almost done. We are just churning through content. But after that's done, we still have to make videos of it. We still have to make course notes of it. We still have to make practice exams of it. So it takes months to get these things doing. If I'm dropping anything, I I'll be dropping new A+ course on YouTube. That's why you have to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and you click the bell, because there will be a slew of A+ videos here over the next number of months, and you'll never know that they're released unless you click the bell. So it's my YouTube promotion for you, is to be a subscriber and click that bell so you know exactly when those come out. And we'll do it the same way. We will have all brand new videos. They will all be, ultimately, they will have transcripts and closed captioning created by a human. If you've ever seen the automated closed captioning, that's not what I use. For my video courses, I have a person type in what I am saying. They watch the video and they type it in. And they get it right most of the time. They do a pretty good job. Much better than the automated process. So that's what I would do. A YouTube rewind of the most asked questions on A+. I have thought about some videos that kind of summarize a number of these topics and create some very specific videos. And that's how we came up with how to get a job in IT with no experience, 5 reasons your resume keeps getting rejected, 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected. We've got some like that out there that cover the most asked questions. And I've got links to those in this YouTube video description so that you can easily find them. That's probably a good place to go if you're looking for more content. Okay, what will you level up to after you realize you're the smartest person in the room of YouTube? Well, I'm not yet, clearly. Have you seen my numbers? Not the smartest. YouTube's a crazy place. YouTube and the world of content creation, you know, there's things I've learned in this world that I never expected that I would need to know. But it is an interesting world of things. It's changing all the time. You know, social media in general and content creation and training for IT is a very dynamic market. There's changes in the market all the time. There's companies being bought and sold. There's new content being created all the time, new certifications, a new emphasis on things. YouTube is not really, my focus is not to get views on YouTube. I think to me, that's sort of the tail wagging the dog. I really feel like if I do my job right and create content that is valuable to people who are working on their IT certifications, the views sort of take care of themselves. So you don't find me doing a lot of the sort of YouTube-ish sort of promotions on my channel, because I don't think it's a normal channel. It's not like a normal YouTube presentation. It's very unique in what we are doing. My perspective is, if I can create the highest quality training content, YouTube's just sort of where I put it. That's because that's where everybody is. So if I can make that the highest quality, then everything else sort of takes care of itself. So that's our underlying approach, the philosophy I have. It's one of the many underlying approaches to this business model that I have, is we're just going to figure it out by making the highest quality, and then whatever happens, happens. And I felt that doing this from the very beginning, we're going to find out if this is viable just by putting out the content this way. And if it's viable, the views will come. It'll just happen. Just generically, just organically, the views will happen. And they have. I'm pretty happy. I'm very proud of our YouTube channel. I'm very proud of the views we've gotten. The numbers are very solid. But it's not, you know, it's not PewDiePie type numbers. It's not Jacksepticeye kind of numbers. You know, they're a different market for a different group doing a different thing. And I'm never going to see numbers like that. And I tell Mrs. Professor Messer all the time, why didn't I just make a video channel that had kitty cats? I would have been done. I could have hit the same numbers on YouTube. I probably would not have been as valuable to people. Or maybe it would have been. Maybe we think kitty cat videos are more valuable. I just don't know. That's the key. So we aren't doing kitty cat videos, at least not yet. We're sticking with IT certification, free content, get everything you need to know to pass the exam on YouTube. I think that's a pretty good one. I think that's a good place to go. David in the chat room with the $5 super chat. David says, taking the A+ Core 1 tomorrow. Hey, we did pretty good then. What's the difference between metered, measured, on-demand, rapid elasticity? They are all very different. The metered and measured probably are the ones that are confused the most between these. The metered and measured, one talks about being able to at least have a measurement of what's going on. That's the measured side of thing. Metered refers to how things are billed. You know, if you have Dropbox, if you have Google Drive, if you have any of these online file sharing systems, you pay a flat cost a month, and that's it. Just pay one flat fee. Doesn't matter how much you upload, doesn't matter how much you download, doesn't matter. I guess they may have a cap on how much you can store in some cases, but generally you can send and receive as much as you want from those, and you pay one single price. So there's really no metering there. It's all just a flat fee. However, if you go to Amazon, for example, a lot of the files that I share with you when you purchase my course notes and you get the digital version of the physical course notes, when you get that digital version, it has to be downloaded from somewhere. So all of the files that I provide to you are in Amazon Web Services on their S3 service. So when you click on that, you're downloading that from Amazon. Amazon charges me for the download and the amount of bandwidth that was used. It's not a lot. You know, they charge me a few cents for that. And over time, every time that happens, there's a few more cents. That's metered. So they've got a metered system to be able to determine what's there. Now, measure just means I'm able to measure that amount. Later on, I may need to look and understand, are we seeing a lot of bandwidth? Are we seeing a lot of traffic on our network? There's a measured part of that we would work through. And the on-demand and rapid elasticity are not anything alike to each other. On-demand means I can go to a console, click a button, and build an application instance. It's on demand. That's the aspect. That's the instant on aspect of cloud computing. And if we wanted to automate it so that we could build out an entire application instance on demand and have it create this huge application instance, maybe multiple servers as things got busy, and then as things got slower, we could pull down those application instances that fewer resources that we would have to pay for. That's rapid elasticity, the ability to expand and decrease the number of resources rapidly is another aspect of cloud computing. So there's a little bit of play between those different characteristics. They all work together. They're probably all part of a cloud-based system that you're already using, but they all have different aspects of that cloud-based system. And of course, that's not the only determining factor of most cloud-based systems. There's other characteristics as well. And that's when I think, and keep in mind, the cloud-based system, the cloud-based domain, Domain 4, is a small domain relative to the other domains, but there's a pretty large percentage of questions that come from that. So to me, I feel like Domain 4, the cloud domain and virtualization, is almost a gimme because there's so few topics as compared to the other domains from a total percentage perspective. So I think there's a good one there. There's a balancing act there, but those you should be able to take down pretty easily. So there's on the newer exam objectives, you know, I think they got rid of a number of those characteristics to make them less confusing, which is great. And they added a few more things onto the cloud side, as you would imagine they would. So we'll have to see as we get into next month. Come back to the study group next month. We'll go through what all those changes might be. I think that'd be a good thing to go through on the Core 1 and the Core 2. We'll kind of break down each one and see what the differences are. Remarkable. Some differences surprised me. You'll be amazed at what happens next. So that's my hook to you to kind of come back next month and have a look at it. I think that's I was surprised at some of the things I saw in the latest exam objectives, because many of you know I go through the objectives, I get them all down in a spreadsheet, I compare them to the last set of objectives, and then I'm able to give you numbers about how much of this is really different, how much of this was thrown out, how much of this is new. And we go through those every single time. We don't know what the syllabus is. We don't have the exam objectives probably coming out this month sometime. We'll have to see. Or not. It's up to CompTIA. What are they going to provide to us? We just don't know. We'll find out soon enough. And even then, you're not going to have to worry about it too much. Even when April 20th gets here and they release the new exams, there's limited study materials available. So we're all going to be working to get our study materials out as fast as possible, but there's still going to be a limited number. And that's why I still think the existing current exams as they sit today are going to be the right answer for you probably until about 3 months before that exam is retired, and to be able to get through all that content. I think that's the important part. So we don't know. It's kind of exciting to see the changes coming along. It's always good to see that. The same thing happened when we went from 600 to 700, 700 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and now we're going from 10 to 11. The 1101, 1102. It's always an exciting time. I don't think there's going to be a dramatic difference. Most people probably look at these two and go, well, that's pretty much the same, right? Yeah, it was. But like anything else, there's always changes. There's always things that are modified. There's always updates between the two. I would categorize, having gone through all of the exam objectives of both exams, I think it got better. I think they get better every time. And I think this is another example of they've even gotten better with this next set. They've focused in on resolving a number of issues that people have had, primarily with things like the cloud-based technologies, and making them more confusing than they probably should be. There's obviously changes to operating systems. They updated it to the newest operating systems. So all the things you were hoping for to see changed will be changing. The challenge, though, is timing. And I get that. A number of you would need to get this certification in your pocket now, so keep going with the current set. But eventually this year, at some point, we all have to make a decision to say, there's just not enough time left. Everybody should now start switching over, if you're starting your studies new, to this new version. There will be people taking the current exams probably in August, whenever this retires. Let's say it retires in August. Let's just say that right now. We don't know for sure. That date could change, but just generically, let's say it retires in August. That August timeframe, there will be people taking their exams the last day they are offered. So do not worry if you are working towards passing both of these by August, because you are not alone. There are many people in this boat, and there will be many, many, many people working on that. Do not wait for the new version in April. What a horrible decision. That would be an awful decision to wait for a new version in April. What if they don't bring it out in April? What if they change their mind, make it May? What if they push it to June? What if something causes that to get pushed out? Now you're still sitting here with no certification. And everybody else who's been working on theirs, who put the certification in their pocket, they got the job and you didn't. That's my concern. There's no good reason to wait. There's lots of bad reasons to wait. As we sit here today, don't wait to get certified. Get the certification in your pocket today. If you worked hard, you could even at least have one of these exams already done by the time the new series comes out. What are you waiting for? Do not wait. That's just crazy. When there's money on the line, there's a job on the line, why would you wait? It doesn't even make sense. So it's the same certification, whether you get it now or whether you get it later. The exact same piece of paper. So there's no advantage to waiting. If anything, it's all disadvantage to waiting, at least as we sit here today. And again, we just don't know. We'll know more next month. Keep checking back with CompTIA throughout the month of March. Keep checking the A+ webpage on their site. Eventually, they will be announcing, or at least releasing, the new set of exam objectives. Maybe it will be this month. Maybe it will be after. We'll have to see. So that's important. If you get your A+ before the new exams, you're certified for 3 years. They could change the exams every day. As long as you're certified, doesn't matter to you. You'll never take the exams again. Once you finish the exams, you never have to take the exams again, ever. There are people that certified on the 900 series, on the 800 series exams, on the 700 series exams or before that have simply renewed their certification every 3 years, which does not require you taking the exams again. And they've just renewed them. They are just as A-plus certified as you would be taking the new set of exams and passing them. So why would you do that? It doesn't make sense at all. Always get this certification in your pocket as soon as possible. It makes a big difference for anything that you're doing, not just A+, but any of these certifications in IT. They really can help you quite a bit when you walk into that job posting. That interview is pretty important. On the day the new test comes out, the old ones are always available. There's an overlap period. They don't want to leave anybody just stuck. What if you were busy studying and then suddenly you wake up and the test is gone? Doesn't work that way. No. There's always an overlap period. And that's why I said August, because I think based on the numbers I'm seeing now that the current exams will continue to be available through August. Even if new ones come out in April, they're still going to be available through August. So that's a beautiful thing. For someone who's set up VirtualBox with different operating systems, what's some things we could practice doing? Well, I'll show you what I did on mine. It's not VirtualBox, but it is on my system. It's Parallels. Let's see if I can bring this over. So on my Parallels system, I've just got tons of servers here. One is a Windows 10 I use that I boot from this machine into Boot Camp, which is sort of a virtualization, but not really. But I've also got it as a virtual machine on here. Got Windows 11. I've got some Linux versions on here that are really useful because obviously on the Core 2 exam, and this continues to be this way, lots of Linux on the Core 2 exam, especially at the command line. So it's useful to have an Ubuntu Linux, for example, or a Kali Linux, Ubuntu, or any of the other Linux, just any Linux flavor works, and build a VM for that. In fact, I think for most of the videos I do on Core 2, I'm using Ubuntu to make those videos. So I just open the command line of that, and we run it. See if it'll start up. Get that VM running. We've also got Windows 10 and Windows 11 on here. In fact, what I did on this one is I have a Windows Server 2022. Can't see it down here at the bottom. There we go. Windows Server 2022. And I've got a Windows 10 system set up as a domain user for the Windows Server. So this is an Active Directory setup. I built a whole Active Directory infrastructure, just like I was my own independent company. And I have a Windows 10 machine that connected to it so that I could create some videos for you that showed how to reset someone's password in Active Directory, how to add a user into Active Directory. And I showed that because it was important, and you'll see why when the new exam objectives come out. So that's a good example of some of the things that I set up. There's my Ubuntu. There I am. What's my password? I don't know. Let's try that one. I think it worked. Did I remember it? Oh, I did. So now I'm at my Linux system, and then from here I could go through and start running different apps, running different things. I've got quite a bit on here that I could choose from, or just open up a terminal screen, start working at the command line. So you've got plenty of options. I installed this Ubuntu. Gosh, I downloaded the ISO, which it's a pretty big ISO, 1 or 2 gig. I installed it and installed in pretty quickly in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It was nothing to install it. It was simple. Yes, 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 go, go. It installed the whole thing as a VM. It rebooted and I was done. It really was that simple. Let's run a terminal screen. Let's type in terminal. There we are at the command line. And there I don't have the keystrokes to make it bigger. But now I've got a command line to work at, and I can work through. In fact, you can even tell I was doing some things. This is the gate room machine. You'll see this machine pop up again on the new set of videos. So the little behind the scenes when we created those videos. That's what I would recommend you practice doing. Also, if you're setting up virtual machines, I would highly recommend you go out to modern.ie, modern.ie, like the modern world, like that is a great place to go, primarily because under the tools menu on this website is a link to virtual machines. And this is primarily for doing development work with Edge, but the licensing agreement also means we can use this in a lab where I can download and use Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 all in these virtual machines. These are free to download and free to use. So if you're someone you're not running Windows 7, you're not running Windows 8, you've got Windows 10 or Windows 11 on your system, but you wanted to go back and play around with those VMs, just download them from here and load them up. In fact, I'm going to choose IE11 on Windows 7, and I can run that in VirtualBox, Vagrant, VMware, both on Windows and Mac, Hyper-V on Windows, or Parallels in Mac, which is what I'm running. So I can choose Parallels, and then I can just download the zip file. In fact, that's what I did when I loaded up Parallels Desktop, and some of these testing servers that I have, like third-party VMs and other things that are in this list, were created from those live links on modern.ie. So free VMs for you, all Windows, all ready to go, plenty free to work through. I think that's a gimme right there. If you take nothing else away today, you've now got free versions of Windows to use for all of your studies, all just downloaded from modern.ie. It's a Microsoft website, so there's nothing untoward there. You're completely above board, and I've already looked through the end-user licensing agreement for you, and the EULA says you can use these if it's a non-production purpose. So it can't be your primary desktop. It can't be a primary server that you're running. It's for lab use. And as long as you use it that way, you're good to go. Well, we've certainly gone over an hour now in our after show. I think that's probably a good place to stop for now, because we've got another study group 2 days from now. Come back on Thursday. We have our Core 2 A+ study group. I've already written the questions. I've already got the presentations ready to go. Now I'm just waiting for Thursday to get here. It's going to be great. We'll do this again. I'll ask you questions in the first hour. We'll have an after show where I'll take some Q&A. Maybe I'll get more details from CompTIA in the next 2 days. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out and see if we can get more information. I'll send in a query. Maybe I'll let them see if they'll let me say something more about it until that happens. We love that you're here. We enjoy doing these live streams so much. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching the replays as well. If there's anything you'd like to see in a future study group, or other content or topics you would like, feel free to let me know. Always hit the Contact Us link at the top or bottom of my website. And of course, we're on Discord all the time. It's a great way to talk with me and other folks. Available at professormesser.com/Discord. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. Thanks, everybody.